Chapter 1470. Domain Power. It's a great Saint King. Mo Ching Li and Chu Hen's expressions changed as they felt the immense pressure coming from all directions. Boom! Before they could react, the ground cracked open and the rock wall beneath their feet was split in half. Along with the ruptured fault, a majestic pillar of water shot out like the claw of a ferocious beast tearing apart the earth. A violent power immediately swept out. The fierce impact was set off between Chu Hen and Mo Qingli, causing the two of them to be pushed back. Damn it! Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a series of violent purple lightning arcs immediately overflowed from his body. However, before Chu Hen could stabilize his body, there was another earthen brown light screen that covered the sky and covered the earth as it whistled and attacked. The turbid light pattern instantly covered the ground and the sky. Together with the blue light, it trapped Chu Hen and Mo Qingli within it. Another layer of domain power. Chu Hen was shocked. Mo Qingli's face was also filled with shock. Go to domain power. Two great Saint King realm experts. There was no chance of winning at all. However, in the next moment, something even more terrifying happened. The third dark golden light barrier surged over in a completely trapping manner. It stacked on top of the first two domains, and once again enveloped an area of several dozen kilometers. This is Buzz. The three layers of domain power were like a sealing formation, instantly imprisoning the entire mountain range below Chu Hen. Chu Hen felt as if his feet were stuck in a quagmire and a mountain was pressing down on his shoulders. He could not even circulate the true yuan in his body. Hua! The cold wind was biting cold, and an incomparably cold, murderous intent assaulted them. Along with the surging undercurrents in the nine heavens, three figures with cold auras and indifferent expressions appeared in the sky above Chu Hen and Mo Qingli. Do you think you can escape? The cold voice revealed a thick sense of mockery and disdain. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he shouted in a deep voice, "War God Palace." The three of them looked to be in their 50s or 60s. A whirlpool of blue water swirled around its body. A person's body was flowing with a brown earth pattern aura. Moreover, there was another person who emitted a true origin energy that was as sharp as a sharp blade in the night. It was filled with a murderous aura. It was unexpected. No one would have thought that the War God Palace would actually send three great Saint King realm superpowerhouses to deal with a single Chu Hen. What kind of extravagance was that? What kind of shock was that? The hatred that the War God Palace had for Chu Hen had reached such a level. There was no need to even think about it. A great Saint King would still have a way out. Two great Saint Kings were already an unsolvable situation. By sending three of them at once, there was no doubt that the god of War Palace wanted to completely kill Chu Hen and not give him any chance to survive. Chu Hen's heart trembled, and his face suddenly darkened. He said to Mo Qingli sternly, "You leave first." After saying that, a mighty force immediately poured out from Chu Hen's true origin purple palace, and the gorgeous electric light that covered his body was like a wild thunder snake. At the same time, Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and traces of demonic purple light gushed out from the depths of his pupils. Fleeve? I'm afraid you don't understand the situation." The old man with the brown earth pattern whirlpool snorted disdainfully. He then put his palms together, and a terrifying space fluctuation spread in all directions. Rumble. The earth split open, and rocks broke. Along with the violent shaking of the mountain range, huge rock ramparts suddenly rose around the mountain range. The hundreds of feet tall rock ramparts were like an impregnable thick city wall, instantly sealing off all the escape routes of the two. At the same time, the power of the three domains was like a constantly strengthening gravitational space. Not to mention fast movement. Even a movement of Chu Hen's power was extremely slow. Chi. Traces of lightning intertwined outside, and 7 black dots faintly appeared in his deep pupils. However, in the next instant, the old man who gave off a sharp and murderous aura revealed a cold and savage smile. "Die!" After saying that, he raised his palm slightly, and an extremely shocking power fluctuation spread out in the void. Along with the rapidly distorted space, two dark golden light beams suddenly burst out from his palms. In the process of moving, the speed of the two light beams increased dramatically, and under the entanglement of the cold cyclones, they immediately turned into two swaying golden spears. For example, two rays of light pierced through the void. It rolled up, an irresistible killing momentum. Chu Hen's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. Chi, hiss. Two rapid and sharp sounds were clear and ear-piercing. Mo Qing Li's beautiful eyes widened, and her pretty face instantly turned pale. She panicked and shouted, "Chu Hen!" Her voice was blurred in his ears. Warm blood flowed out from the corner of Chu Hen's mouth. Two golden spears slanted and pierced through Chu Hen's body. One spear pierced through his dantian, and the destructive power directly invaded his purple palace. The other spear pierced through his heart, and through his body. It was nailed into the soil behind him. The pain of numbness instantly spread throughout his body. The beautiful intertwining lightning around his body flowed like a dry spring, and the demonic purple light in the depths of his pupils also quietly retreated. Mo Qing Li's tearing cry seemed to be separated by countless layers of people and gradually drifted away. Life rapidly drained from Chu Hen's body. Blood flowed continuously from the wound. He blankly looked at the gradually blurring vision, and an unprecedented feeling of powerlessness instantly filled his body. Death. He was so close to her. Chu Hen, wake up. Mo Qing Li's eyes were bloodshot. She looked at the extremely weak Chu Hen, and a seven-colored flame directly ignited in her eyes. Screech. In her rage, Mo Qing Li suddenly set off a scorching heat wave. Her slender and tall body shone with extraordinary splendor, and her limbs rapidly extended. Boom, boom, boom. The rock walls in the surroundings collapsed like city towers, and balls of fiery divine light directly broke through the rock walls like torrents and poured out. More than 1,000 feet long, colorful wings spread across the sky. Mo Qing Li flew into a rage and rushed toward the three people. However, the three people's faces were unexpectedly happy. It really is the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow. Bring this evil creature back. We have use for it. Very well. As he spoke, one of them reached out with one hand. Buzz! A thick blue light screen spread in the void. In the distorted space, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's aura was directly suppressed. Then, the elder with brown light flowing around him leaped into the air and waved his arms. Whoosh! Chains flashing with mysterious black patterns suddenly pierced through the sky and wrapped around the huge body of the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow. Xianyuan seal, the elder shouted. The mysterious patterns on the giant chains flashed, then rapidly tightened, turning into illusory ancient talismans that embedded themselves into the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's body. Screech. The chains embedded in the body transformed into complicated, mysterious talismans, and in an instant, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's blazing flames were directly suppressed. Its aura was also crushed to the lowest point. Then, a blue water film of light trapped the weak, sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow within, like a bird in a cage that had lost its freedom. Woo! However, it was also at this moment that an impassioned fox howl came from afar. Accompanied by a bitingly cold and terrifying sword aura, the mountains seemed to be attacked by a storm, and a shocking murderous aura crushed down along the way. 19 provinces of frost with one sword. Swish! A powerful sword hum reverberated between heaven and earth. Dust piled up and petals danced in the air. In the next instant, a seemingly solid blue sword ray slashed toward them. Oomph! The eyes of the elder emitting a sharp aura turned cold, and he pushed out a powerful palm aura as majestic as a mountain. Bang! The two extremely powerful forces immediately collided, immediately stirring up earth-shattering, chaotic airwaves in the air. The ferocious and powerful sword aura dove into the chaotic aftermath, pressing down toward the rear. The three from the Palace of War Gods were actually forced to take a few steps back by the powerful sword aura. Nine-tailed fox. The expressions of the three of them changed. Elder Shui, Elder Shur, take this evil creature and go ahead. The elder with a sharp aura said coldly. We've already completed our mission to kill that little beast. There's no need to fight the nine-tailed fox anymore, the other two sneered. Hey, you're right. Let's go. After saying that, the three of them pulled the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow, one on the left, one on the right, and one at the back, and quickly retreated. The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow, whose power had been sealed, struggled against the seal, its eyes filled with sorrow and helplessness as it looked at the young figure whose vital organs had been pierced by two cold spears. Farther and farther away, more and more blurry. In the end, there was only the feeble cry of the sparrow in the sky. Then, a fox figure with an arrogant aura hurried across the sky. When Junjiang saw the blood-soaked young figure below, who had lost all signs of life, his eyes were filled with a thick chill. He clenched his sword tightly, and his handsome face was covered in frost. Palace of War Gods. He gritted his teeth and barked. Then, Junjiang erupted with terrifying speed, dragging a wisp of fox silhouettes in the air as he chased after the trio. Chapter 1471. Huff! The wind howled and the sky was cold. Cracks covered the ground, and among the rubble, drops of blood dripped onto the ground, turning into dazzling flowers. The three people from the War God Palace quickly disappeared into the distant horizon with the sacred winged flame sparrow in custody. The figure the nine-tailed fox monarch Jiang also turned into a black dot. At this moment, Chu Hen had never felt so dizzy before. There seemed to be no sound in his ears. His eyelids also became extremely blurry. Even the pain that spread throughout his body had become numb. His wavering consciousness was like a candle flame in the wind, and the vitality in his eyes was like a rapidly drying spring. Big Brother Chu Hen. Yi Yao's voice, filled with incomparable terror, seemed to come from thousands of miles away. Chu Hen, pull yourself together. The hysterical cries of Mu Feng and Long Xuan resounded in his ears. In the next moment, the last faint candle flame in the night quietly extinguished, and the spiritual spring of life turned into a dry and cracked riverbed, like a withered butterfly petal. Chu Hen's hands fell down powerlessly. Under the snowy peak outside Daocheng, Shilan, who was treating the residents of the city, suddenly felt her heartstrings tremble. Her heart felt as if it had been pierced by a sharp object. She looked blankly at a mountain range 100 miles away, and a great sadness surged on her beautiful face. This feeling, it was déjà vu, a memory that had been sealed in the bottom of her heart and was unwilling to mention, rushed into her mind like a tide. Clang! It was a stormy night many years ago. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, and the wind and rain intertwined. One after another, lightning flashed across the sky. The dazzling lightning was like the sharp claws of an evil dragon, constantly tearing apart the dark sky. The rain grew heavier, and the water on the ground formed a river. Sis, I'm sorry. A 14 or 15-year-old boy looked weakly at the purple-haired girl kneeling beside him. The young man's body trembled as blood gushed out from his mouth. Under the padding of the rain, the dazzling red color was gradually diluted and melted. His other companions had already given up trying to save him. His internal organs had already been smashed. No one could save him. A black saber was stabbed into the ground beside him. It was a birthday present that the purple-haired girl had given to him. In a few days, it would be his 15th birthday. Shichin. The purple-haired girl's face was no longer clear whether it was rain or tears. She knelt beside the young man, full of grief and heartbreaking sorrow. I'm sorry, she repeated, I'm sorry over and over again. She regretted not carrying out this mission with him. I am sorry, big sister. I can't continue to be your proud little brother. Please, Please find me a sister, a brother-in-law. Let him accompany and take care of you. The young man's palm slid down from the purple-haired girl's palm and gently landed on the ground, creating a splash of red water. Following that, the young man's pupils rapidly became slack. As his vitality flowed out, he slowly closed his eyes. The purple-haired girl's delicate body trembled as she covered her face with her hands. She was in extreme pain. Shichin, rumble, thunder and lightning intertwined as if they were going to shatter this piece of heaven and earth. Under the blinding light of the lightning, Shilan knelt in front of her younger brother. Helplessness and grief had almost completely destroyed her will. Shilan stood up absent-mindedly and walked outside in a daze. City Lord? Ing, who was beside her, as well as the surrounding people, looked at the dazed Shilan in confusion. Where are you going? Shilan clenched her fists lightly and replied in a low voice, Today is my last day in Daocheng. Ying, I'll leave this place to you from now on. City Lord. Ignoring Ying's questioning, Shilan directly left the courtyard where she had lived for 2 years. Her lonely figure was filled with indescribable loneliness. Chu-hen, wake up. Big brother Chu-hen, don't scare me. Wake up. Chaotic cries and shouts continuously surrounded Chu-hen's body. Mu Feng's eyes were bloodshot, and he was furious. Who is it? Who is it? Long Xuan covered her mouth with her hand. Her face was pale. At this moment, she felt as if the sky was going to collapse. Xiao Xiaowan, Han Yichuan, and Haozi were also shocked and furious. They couldn't believe it. The scene in front of them caused their minds to be in chaos. The previously invincible Chu-hen, who looked down on everyone with disdain, had actually fallen in such a state in front of them. It must be those dogs from the War God Palace. I'm going to kill them. The veins on Mu Feng's face were bulging due to his anger. His eyes were almost spewing flames. Big brother Chu-hen, wake up. Yi Yao's face was full of tears. She carefully pulled out the 2 spears from Chu-hen's body and tried to stop the bleeding. However, Chu-hen was lying in her arms silently and didn't respond at all. Noni, the Yin-yang beast, also let out a sorrowful whimper. It licked Chu-hen's finger gently, as if trying to wake him up. However, no matter how hard everyone called out, Chu-hen fell to the ground, motionless. Blood flowed all over the stones under his body, and his body temperature gradually dropped. Anger, irritation. After the panic, everyone was enveloped by great sadness and pain. At this moment, a lonely and slender figure slowly walked out from the back of the crowd. Minner Shilan. Yi Yao's face was full of tears, and she called out sadly. The others also looked at Shilan. Their eyes were full of sadness. Shilan slowly walked towards Chu-hen and then knelt down beside him. Her fair and slender hands gently stroked Chu-hen's handsome cheeks. Her clear eyes were overflowing with sadness that couldn't be concealed. That rainy night many years ago, it seemed to overlap with the scene today. Shilan's eyes were full of sadness. She murmured softly, I won't let you lose again. After saying that, Shilan gently closed her eyes, and 2 lines of crystal-clear tears fell from the corner of her eyes. Then, she opened her eyes, and her clear eyes were full of determination. Buzz! In the next moment, a sacred and gorgeous golden light appeared on Shilan's body. Strange talismans that looked like spirit vines swayed out of his body, and they looked like thousands of mysterious and holy runes. The people around were all shocked. They all looked at Shilan in confusion. Mentor Shilan, you? Before the others could figure out what was going on, the light emitted from Shilan's body became even more intense. She gently leaned her hands on Chu-hen's chest, and the swaying spiritual vine light patterns around her followed along Shilan's arms and wrapped around Chu-hen. In an instant, a gentle light appeared on Chu-hen's body. Then, under the increasingly shocked gazes of the few people, a sparkling light spot like a firefly appeared between Shilan's eyebrows. The sparkling and translucent speck of light slowly floated towards Chu-hen, then merged into the center of his forehead. What was she doing? The few people were still puzzled. As for Long Xuan, she glared at Shilan's face that was filled with sorrow. Her eyes were filled with determination. The endless firefly light spots were like seeds from the source of life. One by one, they were buried into Chu Hen's lifeless body. The flickering golden light flickered on Chu Hen's body. No one understood what Xilan was doing. Could Chu Hen still be saved? Even though there were thousands of questions in their hearts, the few of them just watched quietly from the side. Time passed, second by second. Xilan did not stop what she was doing. The divine light intertwined with the two of them, and the light spot that shone from between her eyebrows continued to merge into Chu Hen's body. At this moment, the corners of Mu Feng's eyes narrowed. He muttered in a low voice, word by word, Could this be the celestial sacred heart technique? The few people around him could not help but be shocked. Celestial sacred heart technique? What is that? Xiao Xiaoan hurriedly asked. There was a solemnity on Mu Feng's face that had never been seen before. This is an ancient secret technique that has been passed down in the southwest region of the 100 Nation state. According to legend, this technique allows the user to extract the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and store it in their own body. Then, they can use their own true origin energy to continuously refine the purest part of the spiritual energy. When the pure energy becomes large enough, it can directly merge into another person's body. Moreover, the Celestial Sacred Heart Technique is the most unique medical technique in the world. It is said that it can even resurrect someone who has died not long ago. Resurrect from the dead? Hearing these words, the few people's eyes lit up. Yao's heart was also filled with great surprise. If that's the case, then Chu Hen can be resurrected. That's great. Xiao Xiaoan said happily. However, Mu Feng's face was not as excited as expected. He stared at Xilan's determined face. Deep sorrow surged in his heart. He could not even bear to watch the scene in front of him, because he still knew, if he used the Celestial Sacred Heart Technique to save a person, then the user's source of life would be completely exhausted. This also meant this technique, it could only be used once in a lifetime. One person could only be replaced by one person. P.S. Regarding this line, there's an ambush ahead. If readers have forgotten the previous plot, you can look back. Chapter 213, Celestial Sacred Heart Technique, and Chapter 214, Core Transformation Realm. There will be an update tonight. Chapter 1472, Darkness shrouded everything, and everything returned to silence. Spiritual power dried up, the world dried up. Endless darkness, without the slightest bit of vitality. There was not the slightest bit of color, not the slightest bit of light. All the sources of life seemed to have sunk and disappeared. Suddenly, there seemed to be a wisp of gossamer light trembling in the darkness. The fleeting rhythm splashed a very small ripple in this endless darkness. Immediately after, a circle of gentle chi patterns was activated. In this world of darkness, a small dot of light appeared out of nowhere. It was like the light of a firefly lost in the night. That dot of light floated around in the darkness. Shrouded in darkness, it was weak and pitiful. It could not light up any narrow corner at all. And then, another dot of light appeared. The two dots of light were like fireflies that had lost their way and quickly touched each other. But their light was still so weak that it was negligible. But then, a third, fourth, fifth. More and more dots of light began to appear, as if a ray of light had been added to the world shrouded in darkness. Like a firefly hugging the moon, the dense dots of light began to gather together. Tens of thousands of weak auras intertwined with each other, and an energy that was getting stronger and stronger slowly overlapped with each other. A beam of light pierced through the darkness, and a ray of soft light drove away the cold. The extinguished candle lit up again. The dried-up riverbed overflowed with spiritual spring water, and under the withered petals a new emerald green sprout actually emerged. Heavenly Revolving Sacred Heart Technique, a secret technique that allowed the user to collect and condense power for others to absorb. It was an ancient secret technique that sacrificed oneself for no reason. It was precisely because this secret technique only cared about others and did not benefit oneself at all. So, although this technique had been passed down in the 100 Kingdoms for a long time, very few people practiced it. Even if it had the divine power to resurrect the dead, no one was willing to touch it. Unexpected. What made Mu Feng especially incredulous was that Xilan had actually mastered this heavenly revolving sacred heart technique that no one cared about. Even more unexpected was that she had practiced this technique to the highest level, and even more unexpected that she would use this technique without hesitation. Perhaps the crowd did not know. When the Sacred Star Dynasty still existed and the Tensei Prefecture still existed, Xilan had once used the Heaven Revolution's Sacred Heart on Chu Hen. However, at that time, it was only to help Chu Hen raise his cultivation and break through to a higher realm. There was a world of difference between the current situation and the past. Mu Feng did not dare to continue watching. He really didn't know what terrible things would happen next. His eyes reddened, and he couldn't help but tear up. He wanted Xilan to stop. But when the words reached his mouth, he couldn't bring himself to say them. He knew that Xilan would not listen to him, no matter how hard he tried to persuade her. Wah! Suddenly, a gentle breeze blew past, and something unbelievable happened. The light radiating from Chu Hen's body became incomparably strong, and the spirit inscriptions intertwined on his body also shone with dazzling colors. It was like a clear spring that overflowed from a dried well. Chu Hen's source of life, which had disappeared, had actually recovered. A wave of life force that was gradually growing began to emit from his body. The most shocking thing was that the true essence and saint souls that were shattered and scattered slowly gathered from all directions. They changed into countless illusory beams of light and entered Chu Hen's dantian. This is Yi Yao, who was holding Chu Hen, was surprised and happy. Xiao Xiaowan, Han Yichuan, and Haozi were also happy. Only Long Xuan and Mu Feng looked more and more uneasy. The dissipated source of life gathered at a very rapid pace. The wounds on Chu Hen's heart and abdomen were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if they were being nourished by the divine spring immortal liquid. New flesh rapidly grew out of the blurry wounds. Countless gentle golden light patterns and fluorescent light dots filled the hole in Chu Hen's heart. The dazzling broken flesh and blood fused together, and the pierced heart was bathed in the gentle holy light, as if it was bathed in the immortal holy spring. Soon, the two fatal wounds on his body healed. Thump! A slight vibration came from Chu Hen's chest, and the heart that had come back to life miraculously started beating again. Big brother Chu Hen, he's alive, he's alive. Yi Yao was overjoyed, and she shouted happily. The people behind her were also very excited. Mentor Xilan, big brother Chu Hen is alive. Thank. However, before Yi Yao could finish her words, her voice suddenly stopped, and then she looked at the beautiful woman in front of her with a face full of shock. The expressions of Xiao Xiaowan, Han Yichuan, and Haozi all changed. Long Xuan's delicate body trembled, and her eyes widened. Xilan subconsciously turned to the side, and at the same time, removed her hands from Chu Hen's chest. Just a moment ago, her hands were as fair as jade, but now they were dry and wrinkled, like the hands of an old man. Mu Feng gritted his teeth and frowned. He turned around and shouted to the people around him, "All of you, turn around." As he spoke, 2 streams of hot tears flowed down his face. He clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds, and he tried his best not to cry. The people immediately turned around, and their fingernails dug deep into their palms. Was this the price of using the heavenly rotation Sacred Heart? It was so huge. It was so difficult. It was especially heavy. It was so heavy that it was difficult to bear. Tell him not to look for me anymore. Xilan's slightly hoarse voice came from behind them. The people wanted to turn around, but they held back. Under her long purple hair, those clear eyes looked at Chu Hen's calm and serene face, and then she couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile. "In the end, I still made you stay. Live on for me." With that, Xilan turned around and left without looking back. At this moment, the people were already in tears. Mu Feng closed his eyes and shouted to the sky, Student Mu Feng sends off Minter Shilon. Student Zhou Hao sends off Minter Shilon. Long Xuan sends off Minter Shilon. Yao sends off Minter Shilon. Xiao Xiaowan. Han Ichuan sends off Minter Shilon. The heavy voice echoed in the depths of the forest. Shilon still didn't look back. Goodbye, never again. Today, it was her last day in Daocheng. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was God's will. Shilan's original intention of practicing the heavenly rotation Sacred Heart was for her only brother, Shichun. However, when Shichun died, she couldn't cultivate the heavenly rotation Sacred Heart to the highest level. She could only watch her loved one fall in front of her. Later, the appearance of Chu Hen gradually brought her out of the shadow. That young man was too similar to Shichun. In the beginning, she took care of Chu Hen like a younger brother, but slowly, Shilon couldn't tell her heart apart. She started to feel lost, confused, conflicted. Therefore, in the midst of the conflict, Shilon chose to leave Dongsheng State alone. She drifted all the way and finally came here. But she didn't expect that after 2 years of peace, the man who made her confused appeared in front of her again. He was still the same as before, unable to tell her heart apart. But one thing was for sure, Shilan's heart was filled with joy when she saw him again. Because of this happiness, she agreed to leave this place with him, leave this heart that had been peaceful for 2 years, even wherever she went in the future. However, on this last day, Shilan made a choice that followed her heart, especially resolute, extremely resolute. She swore that this was the first time she made such a resolute choice. Today, it was her last day in Daocheng, a choice that she wouldn't regret. It was hazy and blurry. The overlapping spaces were like pieces of crushed memories that were constantly being pieced together. Consciousness. It was like being dragged back from an endless dark abyss. The dreamlike scene flickered continuously in the dusky darkness of the night. In a long tunnel, Chu Hen seemed to be passing through a wide corridor. The scenes overlapped, and the end of the long corridor was suddenly pulled closer. Hua! The night sky was dotted with stars. Under the bright moon, a beautiful and refined figure was dancing under the moonlight. Her graceful dance was like a spirit butterfly shuttling through the flowers. Her long purple hair and exquisite facial features made her look like an elf that had been forgotten in the mortal world. Minter, Chu Hen called softly. Goodbye. She looked back and smiled faintly, like the blooming cherry blossoms under the snow mountain. Goodbye? Why do you want to say goodbye? Where are you going? Chu Hen asked doubtfully. The other party didn't answer. Her slender dance slowly faded into the dreamy night. If there's a next time, I'll dance a complete dance for you again. After saying that, she stepped back gently. Chu Hen was extremely flustered. He didn't know what was going on, so he directly rushed forward and threw himself at the other party with open arms. Minter, wait for me. Chu Hen leapt up, wanting to grab onto the other party. However, in the next instant, the ground beneath him had shockingly turned into a bottomless cliff. Minter? Buzz. In an instant, Chu Hen suddenly opened his eyes and directly sat up on the bed. The pain in his chest followed. Chu Hen covered his chest with one hand and couldn't help but let out a hiss. Big brother Chu Hen, you're awake. Then, Yi Yao's joyful voice sounded. In a spacious and bright room, Yi Yao was alone by the bed. Where is this? What happened? Chu Hen asked. We're still in Daocheng. Big brother Chu Hen, you've been unconscious for many days. After saying that, Chu Hen covered his aching head with one hand. At the same time, the memories before he fainted came flooding back. I'm actually not dead. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. At the same time, he recalled the situation when he was besieged by 3 great Saint King realm powerhouses from the War God Palace. At the same time, Mu Feng, Long Xuan, and the others who heard the noise immediately rushed into the room. Seeing the awakened Chu Hen, everyone was excited. Chu Hen's gaze swept across them. He then asked, Where's Minter? Where is she? Chapter 1473. Where's Tutor? Where is she? Chu Hen endured the intense pain in his chest as he sat up on the bed. However, in response to Chu Hen's question, Everyone looked at each other, not knowing how to answer. Big Brother Chu Hen, be careful. Your injuries haven't fully recovered. Yao stepped forward to support him and try to change the topic. However, Chu Hen raised his hand and pushed her away. His deep gaze swept across Mu Feng, Xiao Xiaowan, and the others' faces. Looking at their fluctuating expressions, Chu Hen's gaze finally fell on Long Xuanxuan. What happened? Tell me. Long Xuanxuan clenched her lily-white hands and raised her phoenix eyes slightly. She gritted her teeth and said, Tutor Shilan used the celestial sacred heart on you. Celestial sacred heart. Chu Hen was no stranger to these words. When he was in Tensei Prefecture, Shilan had used this technique on him to help him break through to the next realm in order to better deal with the Earthless tournament established by the various martial houses. It was also because she used the celestial sacred heart that Shilan was weak for a few days. And then, where is she now? Chu Hen stood up shakily. His sharp gaze made people feel uneasy. Back then, Shilan had damaged herself just to help him raise his cultivation. And now, Chu Hen clearly remembered that his heart and true essence Violet Palace had suffered devastating damage. Under such circumstances, what kind of consequences would the celestial sacred heart bring to Shilan? Even Long Xuanxuan did not dare to look Chu Hen in the eye. She's already left. Long Xuanxuan replied in a low voice. Where did he go? Chu Hen's emotions gradually became agitated as he vaguely felt an ominous omen. Chu Hen, calm down. Mu Feng hurriedly stepped forward to calm him down. None of us want to see such an outcome. Mentor Shilan hopes that you can live on for her. What do you mean by living for her? Tell me. Chu Hen's eyes reddened as he grabbed Mu Feng's collar. Where is she? Everyone was shocked. They all stepped forward to dissuade him. Brother Chu Hen, don't be like this. Chu Hen, let's talk this out. Mu Feng also had a sorrowful expression as he said, the Celestial Revolution's sacred heart can only be used once. Once a person is saved, she will exhaust her own source of life. Hearing this, Chu Hen became even more furious, his eyes almost spitting fire. Why didn't you stop her? Why didn't you stop her? Chu Hen roared hysterically. Why did you use her life to exchange for mine? Why didn't you stop her? Mu Feng closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, his eyes were also red. Mentor Shilan doesn't want to see you like this. Get out of my way. With that, Chu Hen pushed Mu Feng away, then pushed everyone away and stumbled out of the room. Brother Chu Hen, where are you going? Wait for me. Yi Yao, Haozi, and the rest immediately chased after him. Xiao Xiaowan and Long Xuanxuan looked at Mu Feng with some difficulty. Are you okay? Xiao Xiaowan asked. Mu Feng shook his head. I'm already mentally prepared. This guy definitely won't be able to calm down soon. Shilan's importance to Chu Hen was almost the same as his family. Mu Feng had already thought of Chu Hen's grief after he woke up. After all, no one would be able to accept the woman who was as close to him as an elder sister choosing to sacrifice her life to save him. In the vast and beautiful mountain forest, Chu Hen ran around wildly as if he had lost his mind. He went to the hut where Shilan lived in the mountain outside the city. There was no one there. He searched the surrounding valleys and jungles, crossed the mountain stream and rice fields outside the city, but he still didn't see that familiar figure. From morning to evening, from night to dawn again. After wandering outside for a whole day, Chu Hen finally knelt on the edge of a giant cliff. He looked at the vast mountains, rivers, and valleys, as well as the isolated mountain city in the distance. But he couldn't feel the slightest breath of Shilan. Once again, she disappeared from his world. But this time, there seemed to be nothing left. Self-blame, guilt. It occupied Chu Hen's body and mind. He closed his eyes. Overflowing hot tears soaked his eyelashes and then slowly flowed down his face. I'm sorry, Chu Hen muttered to himself. Then, Chu Hen fell on his back on the ground, looking up at the clear sky without any impurities. His vision changed from clear to blurred, and then gently melted and fell on the rocky ground. Brother Chu Hen? Not far away, Yi Yao, Haozi, and others hurried over. Before they went forward, They were stopped by Mu Feng, who came behind them. Let him be. They couldn't help but stop. Shilan's departure was a particularly heavy blow. Even if they went over now, they couldn't change the fact that he was in a daze. Another day passed. From early morning to evening, Chu Hen lay on the ground like a puppet, motionless, staring at the sky blankly. During this period, they just took turns to guard him and didn't go forward to talk to him. In the evening, a cold current suddenly attacked King Chuiyuan. That night, the weather suddenly became cold. The cold wind whistled, the stars fell, the bright moon retreated, and crystal snowflakes floated in the sky. Is it snowing? It seems so. Xiao Xiaowan and Yi Yao, who were not far from Chu Hen, looked at the sudden abnormal weather in surprise. During the day, the sky was clear. When night fell, it began to snow. The crystal snowflakes fell on the ground and quickly melted. It was thought that the heavy snow would soon stop, but to their surprise, the cold current was getting stronger and stronger, and the snow crystals flying all over the sky began to turn into heavy snowflakes. The temperature dropped to the freezing point, and the ground quickly began to accumulate snow. Soon it was covered with a layer of white frost. The snow is getting heavier. We have to take Brother Chu Hen back, Yi Yao said with some worry. Xiao Xiaowan shook her head. Don't worry about him. This cold can't freeze him at all. Yi Yao sighed and nodded helplessly. A sudden cold current swept through the entire Qing Shu plain. The white snow fell in front of the doors of the houses and drifted into the people's windows. Facing this cold that came without any warning, the residents of Daocheng set up stoves in front of their houses or in the hall. The elderly looked surprised. The young children were particularly happy. It's snowing. It hasn't snowed in Daocheng for a long time. Tomorrow, we can have a snowball fight. Go to bed early tonight. Tomorrow, Daocheng will be super beautiful. Several children in the courtyard chased and played with each other. At the gate, a 15 or 16-year-old girl leaned against the doorframe, looking at the beautiful snowflakes falling from the sky with a sad expression. Eyeing, go to my room and get a thick quilt. Don't catch a cold at night. A white-haired old woman walked over with a walking stick. Got it, Grandma, Eing replied softly. The old woman raised her head and looked at the snowflakes in the sky with her turbid eyes. She muttered, It is said that only when the mountain god in the sacred mountain feels sad will it snow. That's not it, Ing retorted. When people are very happy, they will also cry. The mountain god doesn't necessarily have to feel sad for it to snow. The old woman's lips moved slightly, but she did not say anything. In Daocheng, countless residents seemed to have difficulty falling asleep, all of them curled up by the stove in silence. Is it because City Lord Shi left here that the mountain god feels sad? Where did City Lord Shi go? I don't know. However, she is such a good person. The mountain god will definitely protect her. Definitely. The snow fell for an entire night. The huge Qingshu plain was covered in white. Daocheng had also become an incomparably beautiful snow city. On the side of the cliff, on the mountain, Chu Hen was directly buried in the thick snow. From afar, only a rough outline could be seen. The next day, Long Xuan, Mu Feng, and the others came to replace Yi Yao and Xiao Xiaowan, who had been guarding for the whole day. Still not saying anything? Hani Chuan asked. The two shook their heads. Looking at the figure buried in the snow, everyone could only sigh helplessly. However, at this moment, in the midland that was isolated from Qingshu Plain, a surging undercurrent was quietly spreading. Chapter 1474. Night. Birds flew south in the east. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The sky above the central prefecture seemed to be gradually covered by a hazy dark cloud. On top of a luxuriously decorated jade pavilion, perfectly straight railings and jade pillars formed a long corridor. Standing in the hallway of the tall pavilion and looking into the distance, one could see the majestic buildings exuding a supreme and dignified aura. Moreover, this jade pavilion was like an imperial pavilion that stood in the middle of many luxurious imperial palaces. A sigh sounded at the end of the long corridor. Under the moonlight, a young woman in a white evening dress leaned against the railing, holding her cheek with one hand, thinking about something. It's so late, you still haven't rested? A gentle voice and light footsteps came from the staircase on the side of the long corridor. The woman's beautiful peach blossom eyes were like clear waves, only to see a kind-looking woman in plain clothes slowly walking over. Elder Qingyu, why are you here? The woman's beautiful eyes glowed. I'm here to see you. The woman in plain clothes walked in front of her, with some affection in her eyes. You've been a little distracted since coming back from the Chaos Devil domain. What happened? The woman shook her head, a faint trace of complexity in her eyes. Nothing. I just met someone I don't want to see. Since it's someone you don't want to see, then don't see him in the future. Why does he disturb your mind? Bai Qingyu didn't answer, but just stared away with a sad expression. I've always wanted to ask you something. The woman in plain clothes continued. The last time you came back from the Immortal and Devil Tomb, you were locked in a room for a whole month. Was it also because of this person? At the mention of the Immortal and Devil Tomb, Bai Qingyu couldn't help but clench the edge of the railing. She bit her red lips. Her expression was indescribably complicated. Seeing this, the woman in plain clothes didn't dare to continue asking. Then she changed the topic. Your bloodline boundary power is improving very quickly. I think you should consider obtaining that power. Bai Qingyu's expression relaxed a little. She let out a deep breath, looked back at the woman, and said, I'm also going to mention this to you in 2 days. What's your idea? The faster, the better. You can't rush this. With your talent and the strength of your sacred body bloodline, you'll be able to control that power sooner or later. But before that, you still have to obtain Emperor Bai's inheritance power. Bai Qinyu's beautiful eyes lit up. When will you give it to me? Not yet. I don't feel at ease with your current state. You should adjust yourself first. Got it. Bai Qinyu nodded and responded. Elder Qing, you didn't say anything. She also raised her head, gazed at the hazy moonlight in the sky, and murmured to herself. This year, the Midland doesn't seem to be peaceful. It seems that the War God Palace is going to launch an attack against the martial sect. His tone was light, and there wasn't much emotion in it. It was as if he was casually talking about an unrelated matter. On the contrary, Bai Qinyu was taken aback. The War God Palace wants to deal with the martial sect. It should be. I did not pay much attention to it, but since the War God Palace chose to violate the rules of the Holy War to take revenge on the martial sect, they must be planning to be ruthless. The speaker didn't mean anything, but the listener heard it. An inexplicable thought flashed through Bai Qinyu's eyes. But soon, she shook her head. If the War God Palace wanted to launch an attack against the martial sect, what did it have to do with her? In the Midland, ever since the Holy War ended, the turmoil in the Midland hadn't stopped. After the war in the Chaos Devil realm, the power structure of those large sects had changed dramatically. There were even a few sects that declared their downfall. After the Cloud Soaring School suffered a great loss, it was no longer powerful enough to control those affiliated forces. Just when people thought that the Cloud Soaring School was about to fall into the abyss, the news came out that all members of the Cloud Soaring School had joined the War God Palace and voluntarily became an affiliated force of the War God Palace. When this news spread out, it instantly caused a great disturbance in the Midland. Although the core forces of the Cloud Soaring School had all collapsed in the Chaos Devil realm, it still had a strong foundation, and a group of elders and high-level members were still there. If the Cloud Soaring School joined hands with the War God Palace, it seemed that they had found a strong support. As the saying goes, a skinny camel is still bigger than a horse. Not to mention the fact that the War God Palace was an overlord of a region. Even though they had suffered a great loss in this wind and cloud competition, their top forces were still there. As long as the War God Palace waved its hand, many sects and forces would naturally join them and work for them. After a period of intense brewing, the surging undercurrent splashed out like lava from a volcano eruption. When the situation in the Midland was still in an unstable state, the army of the War God Palace directly stepped into the mountain gate of the martial sect. The martial sect. Boom! The group of experts from the God of War Palace marched straight down, like an indestructible cold spear, directly trampling through the main road of the martial sect's mountain gate. Dark clouds covered the sky and covered the earth like a gathering storm and tsunami, crushing over. Something bad happened. Leader, something bad happened. The people from the War God Palace and the Cloud Soaring School have come. The disciples of the martial sect hurriedly rushed into the meeting hall of the martial sect in panic. Inside the hall, leader Dongfang Hengji, Ao, Yun Zhuang, Situ Song, Ning Qiushui, Luo Tsang, and the other leaders of the peak academies were all shocked and angry. Bastard, simply bastard. I didn't expect the War God Palace to be so shameless. They lost the Holy War and chose to publicly take revenge. North Star Peak Master Luo Tsang shouted, "What should we do? Fight or retreat?" Ning Qiushui asked. Everyone looked at leader Dongfang Hengji. If they fought, they would not be a match for the War God Palace and the Cloud Soaring School. In less than a day, the entire martial sect would be covered in blood. However, if they retreated, it would mean that they would have to abandon the entire sect and flee. In the future, they would be like stray dogs. Fight them. The martial sect will not escape. West Sky Peak Master Sido Song said loudly. Dongfang Hengji's eyes turned cold, and he immediately reacted. Yun Zhuang, Qiushui, the two of you immediately open the sect protecting formation. Luo Tsang said, the two of you immediately go to the Great Emperor Palace and the Five Elements Holy Clan to seek help. Seek help from the Great Emperor Palace and the Five Elements Holy Clan? Everyone was stunned. Dongfang Hengji continued. The War God Palace is openly breaking the rules of the Holy War enlistment. The Grand Emperor Palace and the Five Elements Divine Clan won't let it go. You two must leave immediately without any delay. Yes, leader. Luo Tsang and Situ Song immediately accepted the order. The two of them quickly left the conference hall and went to the Great Emperor Palace and the Five Elements Holy Clan through the sect's teleportation platform. At this moment, inside and outside Heaven Martial Peak, it was already a mess. Under the leadership of Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Wu Yin, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and the other martial sect disciples, they directly resisted the invasion of the external enemies. The battle between the two sides began. You guys are really shameless. You lost the Holy War, and now you come here to cause trouble. Qiu Xingyi shouted angrily as he sent two War God Palace disciples flying with a palm strike. Recently, you martial sect people have been a little too excited. Today, I will let you understand what it means to fly high and fall hard. An expert from the War God Palace raised an astonishing palm strike and collided with Qiu Xingyi. An earth-shattering wave of air swept out, and countless deep cracks immediately appeared on the Heaven Martial Peak Plaza. I didn't expect the War God Palace to be so magnanimous. You guys have openly violated the rules. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the world? Ha 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 ha, laugh at us? Let me ask you, after we massacre the entire martial sect, who would dare to laugh at us? Don't blame us. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too much of an eyesore and provoking the wrong people. Woo! Suddenly, the order to retreat came from behind the martial sect's mountain gate. Senior Brother Qiu, the sect leader wants us to retreat, Wang Li shouted in a deep voice. Qiu Xingyi's eyes turned cold as he shouted loudly. Retreat! Buzz buzz! At the same time, an incomparably huge golden light screen rapidly extended from the martial sect's main peak. The luxurious and solid light screen directly separated the battlefield. The martial sect people hurriedly retreated, along with the trembling space in all directions. In an instant, an especially spectacular giant semicircle of light directly enveloped the sect's main mountain gates. The sect protecting array, completely sealing the sect. The expert from the War God Palace and the Lingyun sect coldly stared at the huge sect protecting light screen. They're actually cowards. Don't be anxious. With this level of sect protecting array, they won't be able to last more than a few days. Let them live for 2 more days. Once the sect protecting array is broken, it will be time for the martial sect to be massacred. Chapter 1475. Qianqian, the latest chapter of God King Wuji. Qing Chuyuan. The snow that hadn't completely melted was still emitting a slight chill. Under the warm sunlight, Crystal dew hung on the leaves of the plants in the crevice of the mountain stream. Just like before, Chu Hen lay motionless on the ground for a few days. His clothes were dirty and messy, and his face was covered with dust and some dispirited stubble. "We can't go on like this." Xiao Xiaoan sighed and complained helplessly. Yi Yao could only shake her head, and then gently rub the head of Yin Yang Beast Noni. At the same time, Mu Feng, Long Xuan Xuang, Hao Zi, and Han Ichuan also walked over from the foot of the mountain. Everyone looked at each other, but when they saw the same scene, they couldn't help but feel disappointed. Is he going to be petrified? Mu Feng was angry and amused at the same time. "Sister Xuan Xuang, why don't you go and persuade him? Brother Chu Hen should listen to you," Yi Yao said timidly. They looked at Long Xuan Xuang, and the latter hesitated for a moment before nodding. Then, Long Xuan Xuang walked forward. However, after a few steps, Long Xuan Xuang suddenly stopped, and her face showed some surprise. "What's wrong?" Mu Feng asked. Long Xuan Xuang looked sideways, and then she raised her hand again as if she was touching the air in front of her. Then, she turned around and looked at the crowd with a puzzled expression. "We can't go through." "What do you mean we can't go through?" They didn't understand. After saying that, Mu Feng also stepped forward. But when he walked to the position next to Long Xuan Xuang, something strange happened. He couldn't take another step forward. The space in front of them seemed to be sealed by an invisible force. There seemed to be a transparent wall in front of them, blocking them from entering. "This is..." Mu Feng's brows were filled with surprise. Following that, the others also came over. However, when they saw the invisible barrier in front of them, they were extremely puzzled. "Restriction?" Han Ichuan asked in a deep voice. "We'll know once we try." Mu Feng's eyes turned cold, and a powerful demonic force overflowed from his body. A vigorous golden halo immediately enveloped his body. Then, Mu Feng took 2 steps forward. In the next moment, Mu Feng's body faintly trembled. The powerful demonic power that he emitted seemed to be weakened, and the golden light that lingered around him quietly became dim. He felt as if his legs had sunk into a quagmire, and an invisible pressure invaded every inch of his body from all directions. "How are you?" Yao asked. Mu Feng hurriedly raised his hand to stop the others from following. "Don't come over." Everyone was stunned. "Isn't it a restriction?" Hao Zi wondered. If it's a restriction, if Mu Feng forcibly breaks in, it should cause 2 forces to tear and collide. Han Ichuan frowned. Immediately, they saw that Mu Feng had actually retracted the demonic power that he released. Then, he stood motionless in the same place, looking extremely cautious. Just when everyone was puzzled, an invisible rhythm of space rushed over here, together with a slightly stirred airflow. The few people standing behind also changed their expressions. "This is..." Everyone looked at each other in astonishment. The invisible pressure of space shrouded them. They were surprised to find that the surrounding space was filled with Chu Hen's aura. This aura seemed to exist in every corner, endless and as vast as the sea. Crack! Suddenly, a slight sound spread from the ground. They looked down subconsciously and saw that an emerald green sprout had drilled out of a crack in the stone. This green sprout grew extremely fast, like an extended tree vine, and in an instant, it grew to more than 1/2 meter high. Sizzle! Immediately afterward, a beam of purple lightning shot out of the ground and quickly spread all over the green vine. Under the increasingly stunned gazes of the few people, the tree vine flashing with purple lightning bolts propped up the ground and turned into a towering tree tens of meters high. The tree covered with lightning shone brightly, and its momentum was fierce. Following that, the purple lightning swaying up and down suddenly showed a dreamy distortion, accompanied by an unusually domineering aura. The space was scorched and twisted, and the purple flames shot up into the sky with a momentum that could burn the heavens. In an instant, the purple flame spread up and down the tree, like a prehistoric beast burning with flames, which was frightening. "What is this? What is Chu Hen doing?" Everyone was shocked and confused, completely a loss. Then another huge vine drilled out of the other side. This huge vine was shining with the holy light of the stars, dazzling. The pattern of the Big Dipper was shining in the center of the huge vine. Crack! In the next second, the 7 specks of light were like a broken cocoon. Nimble and light butterflies flew out from within. The most surprising thing was that those butterflies fluttered their wings, and half of them were the same color. The butterfly wings on the left were black, and the butterfly wings on the right were white. Yin and Yang Qi, Yi Yao murmured softly. Clang! At the same time, the 9th heaven was overshadowed, and black clouds covered the sky as if a divine punishment was about to come, gathering above everyone's head. There seemed to be an ancient and melodious battle song spreading between heaven and earth. Streaks of purple lightning bolts streaked across the sky, as if a terrifying divine punishment was about to descend. Just when everyone was panicking because of the chaotic scene in front of them, Chu Hen was still lying motionless in the same place. His deep eyes seemed to gather the sun, the moon, and the stars, as well as the endless universe. 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets all things. All things are created, and the world contains the great Tao, created by me, and the great Tao is for me. It was as if he had escaped into a magical world. All kinds of power that Chu Hen controlled were combined at his will. The power of the 3,000 great Tao was like the sun, the moon, and the stars. At this moment, the hidden spirit in the world was circulating with Chu Hen. Wherever his consciousness went, it was like an extended territory, and no one could get close to it. Boom! Suddenly, heaven and earth shook, and all colors changed. Beams of purple light that shot straight into the sky cracked open on the ground. The towering tree that was burned by the flames exploded in the sky like the collapsing heavens of doomsday. At the same time, the giant vine that was swaying with the holy light of the stars was crushed by a violent black hand. The overwhelming destructive storm immediately caused the earth to collapse and the 9th heaven to collapse. The rapidly rupturing cracks on the ground exploded inch by inch. Mu Feng, Long Xuan, Yi Yao, and the others all turned pale. However, this terrifying power directly bypassed them and didn't hurt them at all. What's going on? What happened to Big Brother Chu Hen? Everyone became more and more uneasy. Mu Feng clenched his hands into fists, and his eyes were fixed on the chaotic sky and earth. His voice trembled, and he said in a low voice, "This is the power of the domain, the power of the domain." Hearing these words, the few of them were even more astonished. Clang! Before his voice died away, the countless terrifying lightning beams gathered in the void directly connected with the light beams that shot out from the ground. The terrifying power that could destroy everything squeezed this space, and in an instant, the giant cliff under everyone's feet was forcibly crushed into powder. The vortex storm mixed with all kinds of powerful forces completely sealed the mountains and rivers within a radius of 200 miles. The 3,000 great Tao, all kinds of creation. This is the great Tao domain. Chapter 1476. Buzz, it was a dreamlike, chaotic world. Separated from everything in the world, it seemed to return to the vast and endless universe. The faint spatial rhythm was like ripples on the surface of the water, rippling in the depths of one's soul. Is that so? Are you satisfied? A flat and vast path leading to the heavens, a bridge paved with corpses, a dark and gloomy scarlet throne. A pair of pitch-black eyes that were like black abysses were like endless black whirlpools, as if they were going to pull the entire world into them. The giant scarlet scythe in his hand symbolized destruction and slaughter. It was also an insurmountable power. Chu Hen stood alone on the platform that was filled with corpses. The blood flowing slowly under his feet was like countless intertwining red vines. The two of them looked at each other. One was cold and calm. The other was dark and gloomy. "Submit to me. You will get more than this." The pitch-black eyes were like whirlpools that dragged souls. At this moment, Chu Hen let out a frivolous laugh. I think you're mistaken. This is my domain. Rumble. The moment his voice fell, countless violent and terrifying lightning beams directly pierced through heaven and earth, like the descent of a world-destroying divine punishment. In an instant, the huge, dreamlike space was attacked by a violent storm, and the entire world burst like a burst of bubbles. The 3,000 great Daos, all kinds of creation. This is the great Daos domain. Rumble. It could destroy heaven and earth, and the mountains and rivers collapsed. A storm that was mixed with endless destructive power instantly swept in all directions. Mu Feng, Qiao Shaowan, and the others who were in the middle of this chaotic power felt like they were in the eye of a hurricane that was about to collapse at the end of the world. Any destructive power around them seemed to be able to crush them into pieces. Is this the legendary domain power? How can it be so terrifying? Han Ichiwan said with a trembling face. It has definitely surpassed the ordinary domain power. Even the elders in our clan can't reach this level, Qiao Shaowan said. Yi Yao and Long Xuanchuang were unfamiliar with the term domain power. The former asked in confusion, "What exactly are you talking about? What is domain power?" Everyone's eyes narrowed. Mu Feng exhaled deeply before he enunciated each word clearly. Territory, energy. Only an eminent Saint King stage powerhouse would be able to control it. Great Saint King realm. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Seventh Order Saint King realm. He had directly stepped into the great Saint King realm. How shocking was that? Through ups and downs, I see my friends clearly. Great sorrow and great joy. Recognize yourself. The Saint King realm was a pure increase in strength, but the great Saint King realm was a leap in the state of mind. Some people were stuck at the bottleneck for hundreds or thousands of years, unable to comprehend the scope of the domain, but there were also people who quietly comprehended it in the midst of great sorrow and joy. The crowd did not know what Chu Hen had been thinking about in the past few days, nor did they know where his consciousness had gone. Perhaps in the eyes of the crowd, it was only a few days, but in Chu Hen's world, it might have been several years, more than 10 years, or even longer. 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets all things. There were thousands of mysterious methods in the world, and they were endless. His silent heart would break through at some point in time, transforming from a cocoon into a butterfly. When the violent and chaotic energy gradually calmed down, the dark sky gradually brightened up. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the huge cliffs under their feet suddenly disappeared. The mountains, rivers, and peaks within a radius of more than 100 miles had all turned into ruins. The forest was gone, and the river flowed backward. The sky and earth had been turned upside down. Terrifying. It was truly terrifying. Everyone frowned as they looked in the direction where Chu Hen was. The sky was covered in frost and dust, and Shi inscriptions were circulating. The figure that had been lying motionless for many days had now stood up. Although his clothes and hair were dirty, the aura that his body exuded gave off a feeling of rebirth. His eyes were still deep, his facial features were sharp, and the demeanor revealed between his brows was full of a transcendent aura. It was as if he had washed away the mortal aura of the world, giving off an indescribable aura of awe. Brother Chu Hen. Yi Yao hurriedly ran forward. The others immediately followed. Everyone wanted to say something, but they did not know what to say. It was as if there was no need for them to say anything. Chu Hen already knew what they were thinking. Looking at the few people who were still concerned, but also a little uneasy, Chu Hen looked up and said calmly, "I'm fine. I've caused you trouble these days." Hearing this, everyone's suspenseful hearts could not help but relax. "You." Mu Feng gently punched the other party's chest. "It's good that you're fine." Long Xuanchuang's eyes were full of complicated emotions. "Brother Chu Hen, have you broken through to the great Saint King realm? Was that the power of the domain just now?" Yi Yao asked curiously. Chu Hen smiled slightly, which was considered as a tacit agreement. Immediately, his gaze turned to Mu Feng and Xiao Shaowan. "I have something that I need your help with." Everyone was stunned. "You need my help?" Xiao Shaowan was puzzled. Mu Feng's eyes darkened as he vaguely guessed something. You want to fight with them? But you just broken through to the great Saint King realm. Why don't you bear with it for the time being? However, Chu Hen's eyes did not show the slightest bit of emotion. He replied in a deep voice, I have my reasons. The few of them were silent. They knew that once Chu Hen had decided on something, it was impossible to change it. Mu Feng gritted his teeth. What do you want us to do? About an hour later, at the city gate of Daoqing, Chu Hen, who had already washed up, changed into new clothes and shaved off the stubble on his face. The gloominess and decadence that shrouded him for the past few days had all faded away. What replaced it was an even more dignified appearance than before. Will City Lord Shi come back in the future? After knowing that everyone was leaving, Aing came out to send them off. Even before they parted, she was still thinking about Shilon. The few of them looked slightly gloomy. An imperceptible touch flashed through Chu Hen's eyes. Immediately, he smiled and said, I will. Really? Ying's eyes lit up. Yes. Chu Hen nodded and said, I'll leave it to you during the days when teacher is not here. If there's anything you can't solve, go to Man Xiong in Man City. He will help you. Man Xiong? He's the city lord of Man City. Do you know him? Yes. While agreeing, Chu Hen flipped his hand and took out an ancient scroll. This essence extraction scripture is for you. Read it when you have nothing to do. It will be of help to you. Oh, Aing took the scroll, but she did not know what this thing was. Chu Hen naturally would not tell her that this essence extraction scripture was a treasure left behind by great Emperor Zhao Hua. Whether an ordinary person could comprehend from it depended on their luck. After all, she had followed Shilon for 2 years. This was the only thing Chu Hen could do for her. Thank you. I will read it properly. Aing smiled sweetly. Her pure smile was like the scenery of Daocheng, simple and clean. Farewell, farewell. Immediately, Chu Hen and the others set off on their way back. Aing stood on a distant mountain and sent them off. She waved her hand and shouted, You must come back with City Lord Shi in the future. Her clear and crisp voice reverberated in the mountain valley. The group did not turn back. They just walked forward quietly. Chu Hen, who was walking at the front, slowly raised his head. His deep and serene eyes were like a bottomless black abyss. An ice-cold chill crept up his proud brows. P.S. There are 2 chapters today, so I came back a little late. There will be 3 chapters tomorrow. Also, if you're interested, you can join the Martial King Divine Kings QQ group, 1498-25000. We welcome everyone to chat and discuss the plot. This book came from. Chapter 1477. Qianqian, Divine King Wu Ji's latest chapter. War God Palace. Inside a cold and quiet, luxurious hall. Above the main hall, on a throne that looked like an emperor. It's been so many days. Why hasn't the martial sect disappeared from this world? The cold and indifferent voice was like the questioning of an angry monarch, and the expressions of the people below changed. Palace Master, a tall and skinny middle-aged man, walked to the center and said, The great Emperor Palace and the 5 Elements Divine Clan are meddling in this matter. So what? But stop your nonsense. The domineering figure on the throne stood up, looking like a piercingly cold lion that was overlooking everyone. This time, even the heavens can't keep the martial sect. Duan Song said. The formless deterrence caused everyone's heart to tremble. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Their eyes were filled with viciousness and coldness. I know what to do. I'll give you 3 days to wash the entire martial sect with blood. Men, women, old or young, leave no one alive. This time, I'll tell everyone that those who offend the War God Palace will never live in peace. Yes, sharp killing intent swept out like a cold current. Everyone's eyes flickered with a cold light. The Midland was in a great chaos. The aftermath of the honor list competition had caused the situation in the Midland to become even more complicated. Many sects and forces chose to close their doors to avoid being affected by the current situation. I didn't expect the War God Palace to really make a move on the martial sect. Sigh, the War God Palace really wants to go all out. Emir Chu Hen has caused so much trouble. I don't know if you've heard the news, but not long ago, the war god palace secretly sent out 3 great Saint King stage elders. 3 great Saint Kings? Where did they go? I don't know where they went, but I've received news that the 3 of them captured the sacred winged heavenly flame bird. Really? It's true. It said that the sacred winged heavenly flame bird is currently sealed on the open heaven stage of the war god palace. I'm afraid they're trying to snatch the Saint Beast's soul. It's impossible for 3 great Saint King stage powerhouses to just capture a sacred winged heavenly flame bird. There must be some other mission. There is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Furthermore, at this stage, there is no need for the war god palace to hide their actions. Every single move made by the war god palace and the martial sect have been closely watched by all-powerful sects in Midland. After a round of guessing, everyone couldn't help but feel suspicious. It seems like there hasn't been any news about Chu Hen, who is ranked first on the wind cloud list, for a long time. Indeed, could be that he already? A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Everyone knew that the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow that appeared in the Chaos Devil domain was originally with Chu Hen. Now that the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow had been captured and brought to the war god palace, and there was still no news of Chu Hen, they could not help but link these matters together. The possibility is very high. TSK, dispatching 3 great Saint King Rel Masters at once just to deal with the 7th Order Saint King Rel Jr. I really don't know what to say. The people of the world who were slow to realize this all felt terrified and amazed. It could be imagined that the war god palace hated Chu Hen to the bone. The martial ancestor must be eliminated quickly. According to the way the Palace of War does things, I'm afraid the martial ancestor won't be able to escape. I guess the Han Yun sect and the Spirit Phoenix Valley won't have an easy time in the future. The people from these 2 sects have helped the martial ancestor before. It seems like this is just the beginning. As the matter continued to ferment, many of the sects in the Midland couldn't help but feel insecure, especially those sects that had been on good terms with the martial ancestor not long ago. This time, they all tried to distance themselves from the martial ancestor. Once the Palace of War went all out, it might not be as simple as destroying a martial ancestor. If they wanted to reclaim their position as the overlord of a region, it would inevitably be accompanied by more bloodshed. Martial ancestor. Bang! Along with the chaotic light beam that rose to the sky above the sect, the giant semicircular light curtain that had protected the martial ancestor for several days burst into countless pieces like a burst bubble. Hwah! Chaotic airwaves wreaked havoc. Once the shield that isolated the sect from the outside was broken, the vast mountain gate of the martial ancestor was directly exposed to the sky. In the sky above the Heaven Martial Peak, many experts from the Palace of War and the Ling Yun sect had arrived. Each of them had a cold smile on their face, but it was full of viciousness. What can you change by hiding for a few days? An old man who was emitting a fierce aura said to the people of the martial ancestor gathered on the Heaven Martial Peak with an indifferent smile, as if he was looking at a group of trapped beasts. Feeling the strong aura coming from the old man, the people of the martial ancestor all looked extremely serious. Guxian, Dongfang Hung, Ji said in a deep voice. The old man sneered. Hee, you still remember me. But, Dongfang Hung Ji, you are really brave. Your disciple has actually killed so many people of the Palace of War. Dongfang Hung Ji's eyes darkened. He looked straight into the old man's eyes without any intention of retreating. This is the rule of the Holy War. All the grudges started in the Chaos Devil domain and will end in the Chaos Devil domain. Your Palace of War is one of the most powerful forces in the Midland. Now that you have openly violated the rule, aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the world? Laughed at? Who dares to laugh at me? I'm not here to listen to your nonsense today. If you have any last words, you can say them now. Guxian's aura was aggressive, and he had no intention of retreating at all. In an instant, the people of the martial ancestor all pulled out their swords. If you want to fight, let's fight. If we have the word afraid, we are disciples of the martial ancestor in vain. Your Palace of War is indeed powerful, but our martial ancestor is not weak either. If you want to destroy our martial ancestor today, I'm afraid you will have to pay a heavy price. We swear to defend the martial ancestor with our lives. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li Wuyin, Zhao Qingyi, and the other people of the martial ancestor all looked death in the eye. They were not afraid at all. Ha 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 ha. Gu Xian laughed towards the sky and said mockingly, "What a group of people who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I, the elder, declare that you have lost even the chance to beg for mercy." Then he raised his old and vigorous hand and shouted, "Kill!" The monstrous killing aura pounced towards the people of the martial ancestor like a stacked tsunami. However, at this moment, a few figures with extraordinary auras hurriedly rushed over from the sky behind them. "Wait, Elder, please listen to me, Hua." The airwaves were undulating, and a circle of vigorous airflow spread between the two armies. Tang Bufan, Wei Yin, Lin Yinghe, and Yang Zhongxiao of the Five Elements clan flashed to the square of Heaven Martial Peak. "Elder Ge, the rules of the Holy War were set by many forces in the Midland. Your Palace of War is the leader of all forces. How can you break this rule?" Tang Bufan said loudly. "That's right. I hope Elder Ge will reconsider. I hope the War God Palace will reconsider." Lin Yinghe also advised. "You two juniors are qualified to teach me what to do." Gu Xian's eyes were still filled with disdain. If the Palace of War is stubborn, who would dare to participate in the Holy War in the future? Who would still respect you? Lin Yinghe replied with a piercingly cold gaze. "How dare you?" Gu Xian shouted, and a dark golden halo swept out from his body. The power of the realm. Everyone's expression changed. In the next instant, a dark golden halo spread out in all directions, and like a canopy, it enveloped more than half of the Tianwu Peak. Everyone who was inside felt a huge pressure assaulting them. Their bodies felt like they were being stabbed by sharp thorns, and they felt an indescribable pain. "It's the realm of sharpness," someone exclaimed. The realm of sharpness was Gu Xian's unique realm power. It was mainly sharp and murderous. People who were inside, it would feel like they were on the edge of a blade, and it would be extremely uncomfortable. Gu Xian stared coldly at the people from the Great Emperor Palace and the Five Elements clan. "If you dare to meddle in my affairs again, I will make you die worse than that little bastard Chu Hen." Clang. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue that instantly exploded in the hearts of everyone in the martial sect. "What? Junior brother Chu Hen is dead?" Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yin, and the others all widened their eyes, and their faces were filled with deep shock. Even Dongfang Hongji clenched his fists, and his face was filled with shock. Tang Bufan, Lin Yinghe, and the others were also in disbelief. Could it be that the rumors are true? Tang Bufan frowned and muttered softly. Gu Xian's face was filled with disdain as he looked at everyone's panicked expression. That little bastard Chu Hen was killed by me personally. I'm afraid that his body has already been eaten by the wild dogs in the mountains." After saying that, he swept his gaze across the people of martial sect. "Next, it's your turn." Shock. It spread to everyone in martial sect. At the same time, a trace of helplessness flashed across Tang Bufan's eyes. He looked at Wei Yin and the others, and they seemed to understand each other. Seeing this, Gu Xian's face became even more proud. He knew that the Great Emperor Palace would definitely not fall out with the God of War Palace just to stand up for martial sect. On the contrary, Lin Yinghe of the Five Elements clan sighed with regret, and then said in a deep voice, "Since the God of War Palace has already killed Chu Hen, then let's let martial sect go." Before he finished speaking, Gu Xian's eyes narrowed. Buzz! The space trembled slightly, and the area around Lin Yinghe immediately fluctuated with strong power. Lin Yinghe's body suddenly shook, and then a trace of blood flowed down the corner of his mouth. "I've already said that I don't want to hear any more of your nonsense." The people of martial sect couldn't bear to see this. "Senior brother Lin, this is a grudge between our martial sect and the God of War Palace. It has nothing to do with you. You should leave," Qiu Xingyi said. "Even if the God of War Palace withdraws today, we will never agree." "That's right. Junior brother Chu Hen can't die in vain. Today, Even if his blood splatters on the sect, we will fight to the death. Fight to the death. After the shock, the people of Martial sect were even more furious, especially those who returned from the Chaos Devil domain. Their hearts were filled with hatred. Everyone drew their swords. It emitted a sharp edge. Interesting, Guxian's eyes were fierce and full of contempt. He slowly raised his hand, and the experts of the God of War Palace and Lingyun sect behind him also emitted a cold, murderous aura. Kill, no mercy. At the same time, Qiuxingyi did not ask Dongfang Hengji and directly issued an order. Kill. In their hearts, Chu Hen was already an irreplaceable soul leader. The only thing they needed to do now was to take revenge. The anger of both sides overlapped and collided, like two mountains and tsunamis confronting each other. Suddenly, at this moment, bang, there was a shocking explosion. The layer of dark golden halo that shrouded Tianwu Peak suddenly shattered into countless light and shadow fragments like broken glass. What's going on? The hearts of everyone present were all startled. Everyone subconsciously looked at sect master Dongfang Hengji. However, Dongfang Hengji still had doubts on his face. Who are you? Guxian's eyes were piercingly cold, and his expression was slightly solemn. The person who was able to shatter the sharp domain released by him was definitely a great saint king. As soon as his voice fell, there was a circle of demonic purple light patterns in the air. Then, the sound of steady footsteps came from far to near and entered everyone's ears. In an instant, everyone's eyes swept to the top of Tianwu Peak Square at the same time, the heaven stairway leading to the foot of the mountain. Halfway up the heaven stairway, a young figure exuding a cold aura was walking towards Tianwu Peak step by step. Chapter 1478. The sound of steady and slow footsteps was transmitted into everyone's ears. Everyone's gazes gathered on the heaven stairway were simultaneously gathered on the figure on top of the heaven stairway. Every time the figure took a step, the surrounding airflow would fluctuate slightly. Ripples of purple light spread out from his feet like ripples on the surface of the water. Who was he? Guxian could not help but squint his eyes. His cold face revealed a hint of coldness. Tang Bufan of the Great Emperor Palace, Lin Yinghe of the Five Elements clan, and the people of the Martial sect were still confused. The other party's figure looked especially familiar, getting closer and closer. Soon, the appearance of the figure that emitted a cold aura was reflected in everyone's eyes. The sect master of the Martial sect, Dongfang Hengji, Ao Yun Manor, Luo Tsang, and the other Peak Courtyard masters suddenly widened their eyes. Qiuxingyi raised his eyelids and was the first to exclaim, "Junior brother Chu Hen." His words caused the hearts of everyone present to explode. Wang Li, Wu Yin, Zhao Qingyi, and the others' eyes lit up in surprise and joy. It's really junior brother Chu Hen. He's back. This Guxian actually lied to us. Looking at Chu Hen, who had appeared at this place, Guxian was the most surprised in his heart. He stared at the young figure walking towards him with an extremely disbelieving gaze. How? How is it possible? You're not dead yet. That day, 3 great saint kings were dispatched. 3 domains superimposed. Guxian even personally used 2 sharp cold spears to penetrate the opponent's heart and chi palace. Under such circumstances, Chu Hen was just like a dead man. Astonishment. Surprise. Guxian stared at the opponent's face. He even suspected that the person in front of him was not Chu Hen at all. However, just as he approached the Heaven Martial Peak Square, the moment when Chu Hen stepped on the last step, he raised his cold eyes. His pupils revealed a dark aura, as if he was looking at the Grim Reaper. In an instant, Guxian only felt that the depths of his soul trembled. Fear. Fear that arose from the bottom of his heart. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth lifted slightly, revealing an indifferent smile. You can say your last words. What? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. Even Tang Bufan, Wei Yin, Lin Yinghe, and the others were dumbfounded. Did he know who the person in front of him was? He was a transcendent being of the great Sage King level. At the same time, Guxian's face darkened as he glared at Chu Hen like a ferocious beast. "Umph, I don't care what you are. Since I can kill you once, I can kill you again. Sharp domain." As soon as he finished speaking, Guxian's aura stacked up, and together with the astonishing majestic momentum of a mountain, the dark golden light screen once again whizzed out, crushing towards Chu Hen. The pressure from the collision completely trapped Chu Hen within. The space around it was distorted in a strange way. However, before the people of the martial sect behind him were ready to attack, Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a purple light immediately exploded into the sky. The incomparably overbearing purple light was like a ferocious shockwave, once again forcing Guxian's sharp domain to retreat step by step. What? Guxian's expression changed, and before he could react, a layer of light purple light immediately formed a trapping force, enveloping him. Guxian, who was within the purple light screen, was even more shocked. He suddenly found that the power in his body had fallen into an extremely slow state. This is... Domain, how could this be? How long had it been? And he had already entered the great Sage King level. Without any chance to be shocked, Chu Hen raised one palm and reached out in the direction of Guxian. Domain of heavenly light blade. Together with the corner of his mouth raised into a cold arc, Chu Hen spread his 5 fingers outwards, accompanied by an extremely strong, explosive power. Crack! Rapid thunder and lightning screeched together. In an instant, everyone's heart suddenly trembled, and their pupils rapidly shrank. They saw dozens of purple thunder and lightning spears appear out of nowhere, impressively penetrating Guxian's tall and thin body. Boom! Everyone's heart was filled with terror. No one could clearly see what had happened just now. In the blink of an eye, Guxian's body had already been pierced by violent, sharp lightning pillars, like a hedgehog. Brilliant purple lightning intertwined and flashed around his body. Guxian's eyes widened in extreme disbelief. Looking at that distorted face, there was not the slightest bit of pity on Chu Hen's face. Now you don't even have the chance to say your last words. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. Bang! There was a violent, deafening explosion, and the sky was filled with flowers of lightning blooming. In an instant, under a shrill scream, Guxian's body was directly torn into pieces. Even his purple mansion, Saint Soul, was forcibly smashed by the wanton intertwining lightning arcs. Oh my God! Hiss! Everyone who witnessed this scene felt that their hearts were about to stop beating. Dongfang Hengji, Luo Tsang, Ao Yinzhuang, Qiu Xingyi, Tang Bufan, Lininghe, and everyone else present were all extremely shocked. With a wave of his hand, he killed a great Sage King-level expert. Chu Hen's means could be said to be earth-shattering. Looking at Guxian, who was killed in an instant, many of the invaders from God of War Palace and Lingyun sect were shocked to the core. All of their faces were ashen, and their eyes were filled with fear. There was no longer any trace of the arrogance they had before. Go! Retreat! Retreat immediately! Without the slightest hesitation, everyone immediately turned around and fled. However, just as they turned around, the voice behind them, which was like the announcement of the god of death, reached their ears. Since you are here, then all of you shall stay. As soon as he finished speaking, the destructive spiral airflow immediately shrouded everyone. Immediately after, a storm of purple electric demonic flames that tore the sky apart exploded in the crowd. Bang! The heavens and earth lost their color, and the 9 heavens were about to split apart. The purple hurricane whirlpool swept across the land, crisscrossing with the power of countless dense thunderbolts, and for a moment, screams of fear and panic pierced the eardrums. Like a sacred flame burning a group of demons, under the trembling gazes of the crowd, wherever the purple hurricane went, it burned everything. A mighty wave of air whistled in the sky above the martial sect. The domineering flames of the burning sky made the mountains and rivers lose their color. Broken bodies mixed with dust fluttered in the sky. In just 2 blinks of an eye, More than thousands of people from God of War Palace and Ling Yun's sect quietly turned into endless dregs and ashes. Terrifying. It was so terrifying that no one dared to even dream about it. Such a scene constantly impacted the visual nerves of everyone on Tianwu Peak, including the sect master of the martial sect, Dongfang Hengji. At this moment, looked at the back of Chu Hen with an unprecedented horror. More than 1,000 experts, as well as a great Saint King Rel powerhouse. As if the ants in the palm of Chu Hen were all buried here. Such power was actually so terrifying. There was no ripple in the eyes of Chu Hen. With an indifferent face, he turned around and looked at the people of the martial sect who had long been stunned. The situation changed too quickly. No one could react at all. How long had it been? Chu Hen was so powerful that no one dared to recognize him. Sect Master, I am back, Chu Hen said. Everyone's expression slightly relaxed. Dongfang Hengji let out a deep sigh of relief and nodded. It's good that you're fine. Qiu Xingyi, Wu Yin, Wang Li, Zhao Qingkai, and the others immediately greeted him. Junior brother Chu Hen, you have broken through to the great Saint King realm? Yes. Chu Hen nodded. What was that power just now? It's nothing, it's just a great Dao realm that I control. Great Dao realm? Hearing these 4 words, everyone was shocked and sighed. The martial organization disciples who were already in awe of Chu Hen looked at him as if he was a deity descending to the mortal world. Why are you alone? Where are junior sister Xuan Xuan and junior sister Yao? Zhao Qingyi asked. They are behind. I came first. Chu Hen also knew that after the God of War Palace dealt with him, they would immediately target the martial sect. Therefore, he rushed back first. Fortunately, he was still in time. Immediately, Chu Hen turned his gaze to the people of the Great Emperor Hall and the 5 Elements Holy Clan not far away. Tang Bufan, Wei Yin, Lin Yinghe, these top geniuses on the ranking list did not even have the courage to look at Chu Hen at this moment. One was number 1. One was number 2. Although there was a difference of 1 ranking, there seemed to be a huge gap between them that could not be crossed. Chapter 1479. Chu Hen's appearance resolved the martial sect's crisis in a timely manner. His illusory lightning-like means had directly shocked everyone. A great Saint King and more than 1,000 experts were annihilated in an instant. Such methods shocked everyone in the martial sect, as well as the people from the Great Emperor Palace and the 5 Elements clan, although they were all geniuses on the Wind Cloud list. At this moment, Tang Bufan felt a deep sense of helplessness. The gap between the first and second place was like a vast chasm. As for Chu Hen's footsteps, he was already far inferior to him. Thank you, everyone from the Great Emperor Palace, for coming to help. On behalf of the martial sect, Chu Hen is very grateful. Chu Hen cupped his fists and said to Tang Bufan and Wei Yin in a calm tone. Tang Bufan did not know how to reply and could only raise his hand and nod. Then, Chu Hen walked to the people from the 5 Elements clan. Brother Lin, how are your injuries? Lin Yinghe waved his hand. It's fine. He paused and continued. Congratulations on breaking through to the great Saint King realm. It seems that you will rule the Wind Cloud list for a long time. Chu Hen faintly smiled. Today, Brother Lin injured yourself for our martial sect. Chu Hen will remember this in my heart. If you need my help in the future, I will not hesitate to help you. Seeing Chu Hen's attitude towards Lin Yinghe, Tang Bufan and the others from the Great Emperor Palace could not help but feel a little awkward. This was a completely different attitude. However, everyone was well aware of the situation. When Gu Xian made things difficult for them, the Great Emperor Palace did not go too far. They tried to persuade him as much as they could and would not become enemies with the War God Palace for the sake of the martial sect. In comparison, the people from the martial sect were really grateful to Lin Yinghe. Lin Yinghe smiled. Brother Chu, you are too kind. I did not help much. Since the martial sect crisis has been resolved, we will take our leave. Brother Lin, take care. Chu Hen did not stay any longer. Then, Tang Bufan also took his leave. They could not stay any longer. Watching the people of the Great Emperor Palace and the 5 Elements clan leave, Chu Hen's eyes gradually became calm and profound. He He turned back to look at Dongfang Hengji and the masters of the Four Peak Academies. Everyone's expression was solemn. The atmosphere in the martial arts organization did not become relaxed because of the defeat of the foreign enemy. "We've won today, but it won't be long before the War God Palace makes a comeback," Chu Hen said. Dongfang Hengji stared at the other party's calm eyes, paused, and said, "Do what you want to do. The honor of the martial sect today was all brought by you. No matter what you want to do next, we will support you completely. Junior brother Chu Hen will listen to you. That's right. The martial sect will follow you to the end." Qiu Xingyi and the others also said firmly. Receiving the affirmation from Dongfang Heng's eyes, Chu Hen nodded solemnly. He then said to Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Wu Yin, and the others, "All right, let's go somewhere first." The sky was high and the clouds were thin. The Star Pavilion stood in great numbers. In a luxurious hall, the soaring cloud sect leader, He Dong, sat on a spacious stone chair. His eyes were filled with ridicule as he stared at the two people kneeling in the hall. "Luo Zun, Han Xiu. In the end, the two of you still have to kneel before me obediently." Both of them had different degrees of injuries on their bodies. The middle-aged man, called Luo Zun, directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Puffed. "Old man He Dong, if you want to kill me, just kill me. If you want my horse city to submit to you, then don't waste your time." If you're right. Han Xiu, who was next to him, also scolded with hatred. "My Flying Rain sect has had enough of you. Even if I die, I won't submit to your Soaring Cloud sect." Horse City and Flying Rain sect were the subsidiary forces that were forcefully recruited by the Soaring Cloud sect. After the Holy War conscription incident, the Soaring Cloud sect suffered an unprecedented loss. Horse City, Flying Rain sect, and many other subsidiary forces seized the opportunity to defect. Initially, they thought the Soaring Cloud sect would not be able to control them anymore. However, the Soaring Cloud sect that had submitted to the War God Palace had regained the ability to control many of its subordinate forces. Soon after, the leaders of the defected forces were captured. "Do you want to die? Do you think it's that easy?" He Dong looked at the two of them disdainfully. "I'll let you know the consequences of betraying my Soaring Cloud sect. Someone put these two people in the death row." Yes. A few Soaring Cloud sect's guards stepped forward and escorted the two of them out. Meanwhile, Luo Zun and Han Xiu were struggling as they scolded angrily. "He Dong, kill us if you dare. Don't play tricks here. Your Soaring Cloud sect is the War God Palace's lackey. Don't wait until you're kicked out. We won't forgive you then." "Ha ha ha. You won't forgive me. I'd like to see what right you have to make a fuss here." Suddenly, at this moment, another two Soaring Cloud sects guarding disciples rushed in from outside. "Sect leader, there's an enemy invasion." "An enemy invasion?" The faces of Yidong and the few high-ranking elders in the hall darkened. "Who's so bold?" Yidong stood up and shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud bang suddenly came from above everyone's heads. In the next instant, a purple beam of light pierced through the roof of the palace like a ray of light from the heavens, and then hit the ground, shattering a large number of stone bricks. "What's this?" Everyone's heart skipped a beat. "Who are you? How dare you break into my Soaring Cloud sect? Are you tired of living?" However, before he could finish speaking, the purple pillar of light shot straight ahead. It was like an indestructible divine blade, quickly slicing the inside and outside of the palace. The extremely fierce lightning light beam swept all the way down and attacked He Dong, who was right above the main hall. The latter's eyes turned cold as anger rose in his heart. Then, he violently raised his palm. The powerful palm energy was like a violent wave of a tsunami. Boom! The two violent forces immediately collided with each other, causing the ground to crack. The powerful and heavy aftermath swept out in all directions. The palace that had been split from the middle was directly split into two with a bang. Sound. Like a mountain that had been split open, it suddenly collapsed on both sides. Dust flew everywhere and rocks flew everywhere. Everyone from the Soaring Cloud sect was shocked and angry at the same time. Dong's eyes were cold as he stared coldly at the group of uninvited guests who were standing proudly in the void. However, when he saw that the leader was young and his arms were surrounded by brilliant lightning, he was even more surprised. "Who are you?" Dong asked in a stern voice. "Martial arts grandmaster Chu Hen." What? Hearing this name, everyone from the Soaring Cloud sect was even more shocked. He's not dead yet? And why are the people from the martial arts grandmaster here? Could it be that Guxian failed? Chapter 1480. 1 second to remember. There was no pop-up window for free reading. Wu Zong Chu Hen. His arrogant aura reverberated in the sky above the Lingyun sect. Dong and the others' expressions all changed. Wasn't he already dead? Why was he here? Where is Guxian? Dong clenched his fists, his eyes filled with coldness. Chu Hen raised the corner of his mouth and said with a playful smile, "Why don't I send you to see him?" Dong's face suddenly darkened, and his body emitted a strong and majestic aura. "Little bastard, don't play tricks in front of me. Since you've come to me today, I'll take your life." Buzz! A mighty airwave spread in all directions. A strong red domain power swept in all directions like a wave, directly crushing toward Chu Hen and the Wu Zone people in the sky. At the same time, Dong stepped into the air, setting off a mountain-like aura, and swept toward Chu Hen. Facing the menacing Dong, Chu Hen's face did not have the slightest hint of panic. He did not even have a trace of seriousness. Crack! In the next instant, a string of gorgeous lightning arcs was dragged through the air. Chu Hen directly charged into the range of his opponent's red domain. "Oomph, you're courting death." Dong sneered. This was the range of his domain power. His opponent was completely walking into a trap. Chu Hen, who had entered the red domain power, did not move at all, and his body was swaying with a demonic purple light. The distance between the two was rapidly shortened. The terrifying aura was like a rapidly approaching meteor. Dong reached out with one palm, and his big hand immediately turned into a claw. An extremely strong wind tore the air, and it clawed at Chu Hen's head. Go to hell. Fierce and sinister. His methods were ruthless. It was as if it wanted to smash Chu Hen's head into pieces. However, just as the claw was about to fall, Chu Hen raised his cold eyes, and a circle of light purple light spread out from his body. It was like ripples on the surface of the water, and it spread out infinitely. Whoosh! The resonant, vibrating sound of a sharp weapon disturbed everyone's soul. A long sword exuding a shocking sharpness suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen. After fusing with the Heaven's Mandate sword, the formless Emperor blade flickered with a peerless divine splendor. The black blade glowed with silver frost. In an instant, Chu Hen's right hand grasped the sword in a reverse grip, and his left palm pressed against the top of the sword hilt. His body moved slightly to the side, and at the same time, his eyes shone with a cold light. Chi! Countless violent electric arcs instantly surrounded the sword. The peerlessly sharp blade pierced into Dong's chest head-on. Hiss! The blood-stained blade pierced through his body and came out from his back. One strike, clean and efficient. He was intimidating and domineering. Boom! The expressions of the people from the cloud-soaring sect changed drastically. Their eyes were wide open, and their faces were deathly pale. Sect Master. At this moment, even Dong himself was shocked. He lowered his head to look at the sharp sword that had pierced through his chest, and his anger just now had turned into deep fear. The formless Emperor blade in Chu Hen's hand firmly nailed his opponent, and the powerful impact pushed him back. It was like two birds colliding in the sky. However, one was an eagle, and the other was a sparrow. Dong had no ability to resist at all. The blood that flowed along the blade danced in the wind. Dong stared at the young face in front of him with fear. His opponent's eyes were deep and cold, as if he was looking at a bottomless abyss. At this moment, he was already convinced that Guxian was dead, and the more than 1,000 people who followed him were probably wiped out as well. After being shocked, Dong's eyes suddenly burst out with a fierce look. Then he clasped the formless Emperor blade with both of his palms, and with a burst of the hidden force, Dong managed to struggle out of the blade. Hiss! The next second after the blade left his chest, Hidong did not have the time to care about the injuries on his body, nor did he look at the remaining people of the cloud-soaring sect below him. Without saying a word, he turned around and shot into the sky, leaving an afterimage behind him. Little bastard, it's not that easy to kill me. I won't let this go. A rather angry voice was heard. However, just when everyone thought that Hidong was about to escape, a hint of mockery appeared on Chu Hen's face. I'm sorry, but this is already my domain. What? Everyone's heart trembled. Crack! Along with the rapid and sharp roars of lightning, countless peerlessly sharp purple lightning beams suddenly appeared in the sky in front of them. Hidong's face, which was full of fear, was instantly engulfed by the purple light. Rumble! With a loud noise, it was as if a blooming flower of lightning had exploded in the sky above the cloud-soaring sect. Along with a series of urgent screams, the sky was filled with broken pieces of blood raining down. The sect master of the cloud-soaring sect, Hidong, had died. Whoosh! Suddenly, the unprecedented shadow of death immediately shrouded the entire cloud-soaring sect. All the higher-ups of the cloud-soaring sect were as frightened as cicadas in winter. The leader of the cloud-soaring sect. The leader of the cloud-soaring sect was actually killed on the spot by Chu Hen in just 2 moves. Was he a monster? They looked at Chu Hen with fear in their eyes, as if they were looking at the most terrifying demon in the world. At the same time, the people of the martial arts sect behind Chu Hen had already raised the butcher's knife in their hands. Kill! Boom! Bang! Soon, the entire cloud-soaring sect was immersed in a massacre. Panicked escape, merciless massacre. Dust and smoke were everywhere, and even chickens and dogs were in chaos. It was completely a one-sided massacre. The cloud-soaring sect, which was formed at a rapid speed, was now falling at a speed that was countless times faster. It was almost evening. The red sunset dyed the sky, but it was connected with the cloud-soaring sect, which was covered in blood like a river. The corpses were piled up like a mountain. The flowing blood was like a cheerful stream converging on the ground. Chu Hen stood at the top of the cliff of the main peak of the cloud-soaring sect. He looked calmly at the great mountains and rivers in front of him, allowing the sunset to shine on his handsome face. The mountains and rivers were still the same. However, the cloud-soaring sect had already fallen into eternal silence. Behind him stood Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest of the martial arts sect disciples. Everyone was silent and only stood quietly behind Chu Hen, waiting. Junior brother, Chu Hen. At this moment, Wu Yan's voice came from behind. Everyone subconsciously turned their heads. They saw 2 people following behind Wu Yan. They're the city lord of Horse City and the leader of the Flying Rain sect. The people who came were none other than Luo Dang and Han Xiu, who were previously imprisoned by Hidong. You can leave now. Qiu Xingyi turned around and said to the 2 of them. Luo Dang and Han Xiu looked at each other. The 2 of them paused, and Luo Dang said, I wonder if the martial arts sect has any other plans? Qiu Xingyi raised his eyebrows slightly. He looked at Chu Hen, who was standing in front of him, and replied, What do you want to say? Luo Dang let out a deep breath, and traces of blood surged out of his eyes. He said, The cloud-soaring sect has bullied us for a long time. This time, we are indebted to everyone for saving us, and we are extremely grateful. Of course, we know that your original intention has nothing to do with us, but I, Luo Dang, am also a person who will repay kindness. If the martial arts sect needs anything, my Horse City is willing to serve you. Qiu Xingyi did not reply. Everyone turned their gaze to Chu Hen. Seeing this, Luo Dang continued, Although we are just a group of people who know that we are useless, we are not willing to continue living our lives being bullied. Rather than living our days like this, we would rather assist you. The air seemed to be silent. Then Chu Hen turned around and looked at the 2 people in front of him with his calm eyes. If you're not afraid of death, go to the martial arts sect in 10 days. Both Luo Dang and Han Xiu's hearts trembled. Before they could say anything else, Chu Hen turned around and left with the people of the martial arts sect. In the evening, the setting sun gradually sank. The cloud-soaring sect had never been so quiet before. Absolute silence. A gust of wind blew across, and the air was filled with a faint smell of blood. However, this seemed to be just the beginning. The real turmoil of the Midland had just begun. Chapter 1481. While all large sects and forces in the Midland were quietly waiting for the war god palace to break all the peaks of the martial sect and wash the entire martial sect with blood, the news about the cloud-soaring martial sect being destroyed within a single day spread out like an uncontrollable plague. Like a tsunami. Like a tsunami. Then, like an erupting volcano, in one night, it shocked everyone and alarmed countless sects and forces. Clang! Like the prelude of a storm, the thunders were deafening. Big news, big news. The Lingyun Martial School was destroyed in one day. The leader of the Lingyun Martial School, He Dong, and many senior elders were killed. My God, who did this? Wu Zong. Wu Zong. These two words were like a steel fork, fiercely striking the hearts of countless people. Just yesterday, the Wu Zong sect might not be able to escape. The War God Palace and the Lingyun Martial School were about to wash the whole sect with blood. What about Gu Xian and the others? Without exception, all of them were killed by the Wu Zong sect. Who did it? The leader of the Wu Zong sect, Dongfang Hengji, can't be so powerful. It's Chu Hen. Boom. The word that was even louder than the Wu Zong sect, Chu Hen. The man who dominated the list not long ago was back. All of a sudden, the explosive news spread out at the speed of light. The Midlands seemed to have been turned upside down. Isn't Chu Hen dead? The War God Palace sent 3 great Saint King level warriors. I don't know, but I'm sure that man is Chu Hen, and he killed Gu Xian and He Dong. Many people began to speculate. The Midland was completely shocked. No one could have thought that at this moment, Chu Hen was not dead, but had returned in such an earth-shattering way. Before anyone could react, the Lingyun Martial School had been destroyed. This speed, this power. Everyone was shocked. Without a doubt, Chu Hen was declaring war against the War God Palace, washing the Lingyun Martial School with blood, announcing the revenge of the Wu Zong sect. Everyone seemed to smell the impending arrival of a destructive storm. This time, the Wu Zong sect would never compromise. It's a pity that the Lingyun sect was destroyed before they could even prepare. Is it a pity? Not really. This is fate. The martial sect and the Lingyun sect are destined to fight to the death. If one survives, the other will perish. The enmity between the Lingyun sect and the martial sect could be traced back to the last holy war. Last time, the Lingyun sect crippled all the geniuses of the martial sect who had sacred physiques. This time, the martial sect had massacred all the disciples of the Lingyun sect who had gone to the Chaos Devil Realm. In addition, the Lingyun school had allied with the War God Palace to deal with the martial sect. Once the martial sect counterattacked, without even thinking, Chu Hen would be the first to attack the Lingyun school. The ending seemed to have been decided long ago. The only thing that was hard to accept was that the Lingyun school had fallen so quickly. Before anyone could react, this sect, which had been living in the Midland for over 1,000 years, was wiped out from the face of the earth in a single night. The impending storm had made the entire Midland a bit restless. Wu Zong, the War God Palace. Before this ranking competition, no one had ever connected these two powers together. But now, a storm was silently brewing around these two powers. The Hanyun School, in a conference hall on the back mountain. This hall was rarely open to the public. It was also the most confidential place of the Hanyun School. The leader of the Hanyun School, Shu Yuan, looked like an elegant middle-aged man. His skin was very white but not feminine. Both he and Dongfang Hengji had a kind of calmness and gentleness. However, at this moment, Shu Yuan's face was covered with a serious expression. Except for Shu Yuan, a few leaders of the Hanyun School were standing on both sides of him. Izhou, the new 12th on the ranking, was also here. In front of the people of the Hanyun School, there were a few other rare guests. The leader of the martial sect, Dongfang Hengji, was supposed to sit on the same level as Shu Yuan, but at this moment, he was standing on the left side of a young man. After a long silence, an elder of the Hanyun School could not help but break the stalemate first. He waved his hand and shouted coldly, "Surname Chu, this is a matter between the martial sect and the war god palace. Don't drag the Hanyan school into this." Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly and only looked at Shu Yuan. "I guess the Hanyan school has been having trouble sleeping and eating these days, right?" Shu Yuan frowned and glanced at Izhou, who was beside him subconsciously. He knew very well what Chu Hen was talking about. The main responsibility for this matter was on Izhou. If Izhou did not intervene in the matter between the martial sect and the war god palace in the chaos devil world, he would not be in a difficult position now. What's the matter? We, the Hanyan school, have never offended the war god palace." The elder shouted again. "Yes." Izhou stood out with an innocent face. "You?" The elder glared at him, and he almost stepped forward to slap the other party's head. Izhou walked in front of Shu Yuan and knelt down. "Master, it's all my fault. If the war god palace wants to pursue this matter, I am willing to bear the responsibility. You make it sound nice. Why would the war god palace let you?" Before the elder could finish scolding, he realized that he had said something wrong and immediately shut his mouth. Actually, everyone in the Hanyan school knew very well. The anger from the war god palace was not easy to extinguish. Although Izhou did not fight against the war god palace directly, they could not guarantee the extent of the war god palace's actions. These days, they had been worried that after the martial sect was destroyed, it would be the Hanyan school's turn next. "Even if we join forces, we will not be able to defeat the war god palace." After a while, Shu Yuan said in a heavy tone. Chu Hen looked him in the eye and said calmly, "Does the Hanyan school intend to stay here forever?" Shu Yuan clenched his fists and his eyes turned cold. "Instead of living in fear day and night because of the war god palace's revenge, why don't?" Chu Hen raised his eyelids and revealed the domineering look of a king. "Choose to trust me once? Trust me once." In terms of seniority, Chu Hen was not even qualified to talk to Shu Yuan. But at this moment, there was an aura that made Shu Yuan submit. Looking at Chu Hen's deep eyes, it was like being watched by an emperor. Immediately, Chu Hen raised his head slightly and said calmly, "If Sect Master Shu Yuan agrees, I will wait for you at the martial sect 9 days later." After saying that, Chu Hen waved his sleeves and left without hesitation. Dongfang Hengji cupped his fists and said, "I will leave first." Looking at the other party's eyes, Shu Yuan asked solemnly, "Dongfang Hengji, even you are willing to submit to this person?" In fact, the two were already old acquaintances. Shu Yuan was one of the few people who understood Dongfang Hengji. In the former's eyes, the other party looked indifferent and calm. But in fact, Dongfang Hengji had always been a proud man. He had a lofty and unyielding character. For so many years, Dongfang Hengji single-handedly pulled Wu Zong, who was at the end of the road, back from the edge of destruction. What he carried was not only to protect the sect, but also to revive the martial sect. Shu Yuan had always admired Dongfang Hengji, but today, this proud man was willing to stand next to a young junior, which made Shu Yuan feel incredible. However, Dongfang Hengji just smiled. He has a pair of eyes that people have to believe. P.S. I have something to do today, so I can only update 2 chapters. Tomorrow, I will make up for it. In addition, I hope everyone can support Wave's genuine reading. The author is so poor that he can't even eat instant noodles. Chapter 1482, Spirit Phoenix Valley. Inside a VIP pavilion that exuded an ancient aura. There was a PM on the phone. "Please have some tea. Our Valley Master will be here soon." 2 young disciples served hot tea to him. "Thank you." Dongfang Hengji replied politely. One of the disciples looked at Chu Hen on the other side with a complicated gaze. Chu Hen tilted his body slightly, and when he saw that the person was Huang Fu Hao, he nodded his head. Huang Fu Hao pursed his lips and wanted to greet them. However, after glancing at Dongfang Hengji, Qiu Xingyi, and the others, he finally retreated with the tray. Soon, there was a sound of light and steady footsteps outside the door. Dongfang Hengji and the others looked up. Then 7 or 8 figures with extraordinary aura walked into the hall of the pavilion. The person in the lead looked to be in his 50s, but not even 60. He was slightly plump, and his eyes were clear and bright. He had a noble air about him that made him stand aloof from the world. I didn't know that Sect Master Dongfang was coming. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you, the old man said in a clear voice as he entered the door. Dongfang Hengji also got up to greet him. He cupped his fists and showed the respect of a junior greeting an elder. Valley Master Meizhong, sorry to disturb you. I don't know why Sect Master Dongfang is here. Without much greeting, Meizhong directly asked the reason. Dongfang Hengji raised his hand slightly and pointed to another figure. This is the real representative of our martial sect. He has something to say to you. Meizhang's eyes flashed a trace of surprise. Have you abdicated your position? Dongfang Hengji smiled and did not say much. At this moment, Chu Hen's eyes were fixed on a person behind Meizhong. That person was none other than Huang Fuqing. Huang Fuqing was also a little surprised by Chu Hen's sudden visit. Especially after hearing about the recent events, Huang Fuqing's eyes faintly showed some concern. However, due to the different occasion, she did not show it too obviously. Junior Chu Hen greets Valley Master Meizhong. Immediately, Chu Hen looked back at Meizhong and spoke in a calm tone that was neither arrogant nor rash. Your esteemed self's name has been like a thunderclap piercing my ears recently. Speaking of which, you brat, you have brought quite a bit of trouble to my Spirit Phoenix Valley. Meizhong more or less had some complaints. Let's not talk about external factors. Just based on internal factors, the Spirit Phoenix Valley's chief disciple, Xiao Yao Cheng, had fallen off the altar of the honor list because of Chu Hen. After all, Xiao Yao Cheng was the most powerful candidate for the next Valley Master of the Spirit Phoenix Valley. I'm very sorry, Chu Hen replied. All right, this isn't your fault alone. Meizhong waved his hand, not intending to harp on this matter. Say it. Why have you come to my Spirit Phoenix Valley? Chu Hen looked up and replied calmly. I believe Valley Master Meizhong has already guessed why I'm here. You. Meizhong could not help but squint his eyes. His eyes were surging with an unconcealable solemnity. He then glanced at Dongfang Hengji, who was behind Chu Hen. Seeing that Dongfang Hengji was particularly calm from the beginning, Meizhang's face could not help but be filled with a complicated expression. Other than our Spirit Phoenix Valley, who else did you find? Meizhong asked in a deep voice. Hanyin sect. Did Shu Yuan agree? Not yet. Since he didn't, why did you look for me? But I believe he will come because I saw ambition in his eyes. Chu Hen's voice was calm and indifferent, but it had a deterrent force that could see through one's heart. Meizhong clenched his fist and smiled. But I don't have that so-called ambition. Valley Master Meizhong indeed doesn't have ambition, but you have a trace of fear. Meizhang's expression changed again. The young man in front of him had eyes as deep as a whirlpool, making it difficult to see through. In an instant, the entire hall was silent. After a while, Meizhong replied in a deep voice. Do you know how powerful the War God Palace is? Let's not talk about the number of forces they have. Just the number of Great Saint King stage powerhouses alone is as many as 10, especially Duan Tsang. His cultivation base is even more unfathomable. It's said that he already has half a foot in the heaven-rank Great Saint King stage. With just a few of our low-tier sects joining forces, it's like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Listening to such statistics, everyone in the hall could not help but have a solemn expression on their faces. Even if Chu Hen had killed Guxian first, the War God Palace still had 9 Great Saint Kings. Such a lineup was enough to do whatever they wanted on the continent. At this moment, Chu Hen walked to a meter in front of Meizhong and looked straight at him. Meizhong was a little puzzled, but in the next second, he only felt the space in front of him quietly overlapped, like circles of ripples on the surface of the water. In an instant, Meizhong felt his consciousness was dragged uncontrollably into a dark world. Chu Hen's eyes quietly turned and glowed with a strange light. At the same time, a senior elder of the Spirit Phoenix Valley, standing behind Meizhong, had already begun to ask the guests to leave. Everyone, forgive me for not sending you off. But in the next second, Meizhang's trembling voice suddenly sounded. Wait! Everyone in the Spirit Phoenix Valley was shocked. Dongfang Hung also raised his thick eyebrows. Buzz. A slight wave of air ripples spread out on the ground. Mei Zhang clenched his fists and stared at the young and stern face in disbelief. You? Chu Hen raised his head slightly and smiled without saying a word. Taking a deep breath, Mei Zhang frowned deeply and his eyes flashed with determination. He looked at Chu Hen and said, "All right, the Spirit Phoenix Valley agrees." Every word was spoken with a pause, showing his determination. Valley Master? Absolutely not. The faces of the senior Spirit Phoenix Valley behind him changed drastically. However, Mei Zhang raised his hand to signal everyone not to say anything more. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth raised into a slight arc as he cupped his fists. 7 days later, this junior will welcome Valley Master Mei Zhang at the martial sect. With that, Chu Hen directly left. Dongfang Hung, Qiu Xingyi, and the rest also cupped their fists and followed behind Chu Hen. Valley Master, what's wrong with you? A few senior elders of the Spirit Phoenix Valley were simply infuriated. The War God Palace cannot be provoked. You were fine just now. Why did you change your mind? Everyone was particularly puzzled. Mei Zhang shook his head slightly and said in a heavy tone, "I saw something." Something? The few of them were even more startled. What thing? Mei Zhang took a deep breath and turned to look at the back view of Chu Hen and his party. A pair of eyes that can cause chaos. The scenery of the Spirit Phoenix Valley is really good. No wonder you are reluctant to leave. At the peak of the mountain range, at a glance, the Spirit Phoenix Valley was enshrouded in an immortal fog. It was beautiful and graceful. The chain bridges that traversed between the two mountains were like the great Tao of heaven and earth. It was very spectacular. Chu Hen did not leave immediately. Beside him stood another tall, graceful, and beautiful figure. Huang Fuqing smiled. I originally wanted to leave, but the Valley Master kept urging me to stay. I don't know what to do. Chu Hen also smiled. This was not surprising. It was rare for the Spirit Phoenix Valley to have a disciple that was perfectly compatible with the Battle Phoenix soul. Huang Fuqing's appearance directly broke this awkward situation. Moreover, Xiaoyao Cheng reaped what he sowed. After being devoured by the Battle Phoenix soul, it would be difficult for him to return to his peak. The Spirit Phoenix Valley naturally had to find someone to replace him. Without a doubt, Huang Fuqing was the best candidate. From the fact that Mei Zhang brought her along for the discussion, it was enough to see that the Spirit Phoenix Valley recognized and valued her. Then stay. This place is also not bad, Chu Hen said. Huang Fuqing sighed helplessly. The longer I stay here, the more guilty I feel. Even though senior brother Xiaoyao is at fault, I'm the culprit that harmed him. Even though he has already left the Spirit Phoenix Valley, I still feel out of place here. This is indeed a problem. Anyway, I keep my word. If you can't stay here any longer, go to the martial sect to find me. Find you for what? Are you going to support me and my brother? Of course. The two of them could not help but laugh. Then, Huang Fuqing's smile gradually disappeared, and her eyes became serious. Do you really want to declare war against the War God Palace? Chu Hen's face also became playful, and a trace of coldness appeared at the corner of his eyes. There is no way back. Huang Fuqing sighed. Indeed, at this point, there was no room for him to stop at all. The martial sect and the War God Palace. Only one of them could exist in this world. Have you seen Teacher Shilon? Huang Fuqing asked. Chu Hen clenched his fists, and an imperceptible trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. Is she okay? Chu Hen smiled slightly. Yes, she is very good. After saying that, he slowly raised his head, and his gradually gloomy and cold eyes were like a sharp sword that pierced through the heavenly river, piercing through the layers of clouds and reaching the azure sky. The wind was rising and the clouds were scudding. Under the calm sky, there was an infinite gloomy and murderous aura. Lu Zhenhan. It was about to begin. This book came from. Chapter 1483. Drip. A clear sound of water dripping came from every corner of the dark palace. The cold and quiet palace revealed a cold and majestic aura. Ha ha! Declaring war against our palace of war god? Ha ha! Interesting, really interesting. I Duan Song, haven't heard such a happy thing for a long time. A mere great master martial artist. Does he deserve this? On the stone throne, the majestic silhouette looked like a monarch who looked down on everything. Master. At this moment, someone walked up and said, in the past 2 days, the great master martial artist secretly visited the Han Yun Martial School and the Spirit Phoenix Valley. Han Yun Martial School and the Spirit Phoenix Valley? Interesting. I don't plan to let them go either. I'm looking forward to their arrival. There was no anxiety or uneasiness. There was only disdain and the mocking laughter. A bunch of brave things. Since they want to come, we don't have to go there ourselves. It's been so many years. The walls of the Palace of War God need to be rebuilt with fresh blood. The Midland was shrouded in uneasiness for many days in a row. Starting from the massacre of the Lingyun Martial School, an incomparably violent storm seemed to be brewing in the world. All sects and forces locked their doors one after another, and even stopped many missions that were carried out outside. Everyone faintly felt that the sky above the Midland was covered by a suffocating dark cloud. It seems that the Midland is going to change. In the Five Elements clan, an old man leaned on a walking stick as he gazed at the gloomy sky with his muddy eyes. Behind him, Liningha seemed to be in a heavy mood. Head Elder, I have an idea. After hesitating for a while, Liningha said. The elderly man slowly turned around and stared at Liningha's eyes. But he shook his head. We can't participate in this. Liningha slightly frowned, paused, and said, You don't think the great master martial artist will win? The elderly man didn't deny it. They can't win the Palace of War God. Is the Palace of War God that powerful? Liningha asked doubtfully. The old man did not answer the other party's question. Instead, he looked at the distant horizon with deep meaning. There seemed to be a shocking colossus behind the surging undercurrents in the void. If the martial sect sends people over, then reject them. Hearing the other party's words, Lin Ingha's expression changed. He clenched his fists tightly, as if he was trying to suppress his restless heart. However, the martial sect did not send anyone to the Five Elements Divine Clan. The Five Elements Divine Clan did not have the opportunity to reject the martial sect's invitation. Everything seemed to have a tacit understanding. The martial sect only looked for the Han Yun sect and the Spirit Phoenix Valley, the two top-tier forces. To be more precise, he had only offended the War God Palace. As for the sects and sacred clans that had no grudges with the God of War Palace, Chu Hen did not invite any of them, because they were facing the War God Palace. Any force would feel pressured. Time. It flew past. In the blink of an eye, it was the day that Chu Hen had set. That night, a strong gale rose in the Midland. Han Yun sect and Spirit Phoenix Valley, the two great forces, rode the wind and arrived at the martial sect's heavenly martial peak with the power of tens of thousands of people. The sky was still dark. The gale that had been howling for the whole night finally stopped. On heavenly martial peak, the three forces gathered. War flags fluttered in the air as the leaders of the three great sects gathered. On the martial sect side, Chu Hen and Dongfang Heng Ji took the lead, followed by the leaders of the four great peaks. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Wu Yin, Long Xuan, Yi Yao, and the others who had already returned stood on the north side. Han Yun sect's leader Xu Yuan, the prodigy on the ranking list Yi Zhou, and the other disciples stood on the east side. Spirit Phoenix Valley's leader Mei Zhang led many high-level experts, and Huang Fuqing stood on the west side. The wind was howling and the water was cold. There was no unnecessary talk. At this point, there was no need to say anything. Heavenly Martial Peak. At the same time, the entire Heavenly Martial Peak was faintly trembling. Everyone's gaze turned towards the direction of the main peak's Heaven Stairway Avenue. At a glance at the foot of Heavenly Martial Peak, a bonfire was lit and tens of thousands of people were moving. Everyone, the Horse City Luo is here. Flying Rain Sect's Han Xiu is here. A few figures ascended Heavenly Martial Peak. Two of them were Luo Zong and Han Xiu, who were accidentally rescued from the Soaring Cloud sect. Xu Yuan and Mei Zhang were somewhat surprised. Even Chu Hen was surprised. How many of you are here? 100,000, Luo Zong said. Everyone was slightly stunned. Han Xiu pointed to the other people beside him and said, "This is the city governor of Deer City, Yu Fei, the fort master of Sea Sky Fortress, Hishan, and the Zhangzhou region's region governor, Qin. We are all forces that have always been bullied by the Soaring Cloud sect." After these brothers found out about the reason why the two of us were coming here, they all said that they would come together. Looking at their determined faces, Chu Hen smiled slightly. He said, "Now that the Soaring Cloud sect has been destroyed, you will naturally not be oppressed. Moreover, once you step into the God of War Palace, you will most likely die. Why would you put yourselves in danger?" The few of them glanced at each other. Then, Yu Fei, the city governor of Deer City, said, "Lord Chu Hen, before we came, we have already thought about it very clearly. It's true that the Soaring Cloud sect has been destroyed. Perhaps not long after, another Soaring Cloud sect will appear. We have been bullied in the Midland for too long. We are also waiting for an opportunity. However, this opportunity might cause all of you to lose everything and be completely annihilated." Chu Hen said. Yu Fei cupped his fists and said in a high tone, "I can die without regrets." "That's right. Since we have come, we are also prepared to not return," Luo Zong said solemnly. "That's right. Since we are already here, we will not retreat." Seeing that the few of them had already made up their minds, Chu Hen did not reply. Instead, he walked to the entrance of the stairway to heaven on the main peak. He looked at the 100,000 people who were lined up neatly at the foot of the mountain. Then, a vigorous voice spread between heaven and earth. "Everyone, it's not too late to regret." No one replied. Desolate, cold. A gust of wind suddenly rose. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, revealing the peerless aura of a king. "Cultivate my divine sword. Move forward with indomitable will. Follow me across the Midland. Splash blood on the War God Palace. Let's go." Hua! The sky-shaking aura soared straight into the sky, and the impassioned sound of the horn spread in all directions, shocking the entire 9 regions. At this moment, the eyes of Xu Yuan, Mei Zhang, Dongfang Hengji, Qiu Xingyi, Yizhou, Wang Li, and the others were filled with endless passion. It was as if their blood had been ignited. All out. Let's go. The battle flag fluttered in the wind. In an instant, more than 100,000 people, facing the dawn, marched towards the direction of the War God Palace in a mighty manner. At the same time, the demon beast army from the demon realm crossed the rugged mountain range, trampling the jungle and wilderness. Wherever they went, hundreds of beasts fled and rivers were filled up. Monstrous demonic chi swept out like a violent storm, sweeping across the sky. "Chu Hen, wait for us." Mu Feng carried the Buddha demon slayer sword on his back. His eyes were as cold as ice. Over at the Kunchi mountain range, Xiao Xiaowan, Han Ichuan, and the other experts led by the ancestor butterfly had already set off on the journey. The 3 forces were like the giant meteorites that were converging at full speed, about to fall towards the celestial body. Once they collided, the earth would explode, and the sky would explode. Chapter 1484. The Midland was shaking intensely. The martial sect, the Hanyun sect, the Spirit Phoenix Valley, and the other factions formed an army of more than 100,000 people as they advanced towards the War God Palace. At the same time, the army of the Monster Realm and the ancestral Butterfly Clan in the Kunchi mountain range were also rushing towards the battlefield. In a quiet secret room, the walls were inlaid with pearls, which were emitting a soft glow. A square stone platform, covered with an expensive carpet, was located in the center of the secret room. A beautiful figure was sitting on the platform. Her beautiful eyes were closed, and around her body, thousands of strands of golden light were coiling. Thousands of splendid golden patterns were shining like holy light, dazzling everyone. In front of her, there was something floating. That thing was wrapped in a holy and solemn light, making it hard for people to recognize what it was. Buzz, along with a slight vibration in the air, a series of beautiful, mysterious patterns emerged on the stone platform under her. The mysterious patterns were like spirit vines that stretched out, gently interweaving into an extremely complicated ancient formation. At the same time, the ball of light in front of him also shone brilliantly, and a star-like divine radiance shone out. The dazzling light that filled the air quickly converged into her body. Swoosh! Then she opened her eyes, and a pair of golden pupils, which were emitting a supreme power, emitted an amazing power. In the depths of his pupils, 8 black dots could be vaguely seen trembling violently. Along with the power that was constantly flowing into her body, the 8 black dots were rotating clockwise. All of a sudden, the airflow in the entire secret room became extremely chaotic. The ancient magic formation extending from the platform was also changing. In the air behind her, strands of light patterns intertwined, slowly forming a pair of golden eyes, which looked like the noble eyes of an emperor. The strong power was like the undercurrent of the deep sea. The woman's eyes were like the sky, like the bright moon. However, just as the enormous aura it emitted was about to reach a critical point, the space shook with a hum. Then, like a candle that had been extinguished, the glyph formation on the ground quickly dimmed, and the tens of thousands of light spirals floating in the air also gradually dissipated. The black dots in the woman's golden pupils also stopped rotating. At the same time, the holy light faded, and then a pair of beautiful and bright eyes appeared. Failed again. Bai Qinyu sighed, softly as a trace of helplessness flashed in his eyes. She raised her hand and grasped the ball of divine light floating in front of her. There was a complicated look on her beautiful face. Then, she got up, walked down the stone platform, and walked out of the secret chamber. It was midnight outside. The sky was dotted with stars, and from time to time, a stream of light streaked across the night sky. On both sides of the majestic palace, a group of silver-armored guards knelt on one knee with respectful expressions on their faces. Aren't you going to go into seclusion for several months? Why did you come out in 10 days? The leader of the guards asked respectfully. Bai Qinyu didn't respond. Instead, she said in a low voice, "How is the situation in Midland now?" Reporting to Miss, it is said that the martial sect has officially declared war on the War God Palace. Is that so? Bai Qinyu responded. She didn't say anything else and walked down the stairs on her own. War God Palace. Under the millions of stars, magnificent palaces exuded a majestic and domineering aura. Compared to other sects and forces, the War God Palace's layout was similar to imperial cities in the outside world. There were outer cities on all sides. In the center stood a luxurious main palace. Although the layout was similar, no imperial city in the world could compare to its grandeur. In fact, it wasn't even 1/100th as grand as the War God Palace. On the west side of the main palace, in the middle of the War God Palace, was a majestic square platform. On each of the 4 corners of the platform stood an enormous tower that was over 1,000 meters tall. For example, the heavenly pillar that supported the sky was extremely imposing. In the center of the platform, surrounded by the 4 towers, a sacred bird with colorful wings lay powerlessly on the ground. 4 huge iron chains with dark symbols on them were embedded in its back. The other ends of the chains were connected to the 4 towers. A steady stream of soft light flowed out of the sacred winged heavenly flame bird's body and flowed into the towers through the 4 chains. Under the starry night sky, the sacred winged heavenly flame bird's half-opened eyes revealed a hint of helplessness. It was like a bird in a cage, trapped in despair. Inside and outside the War God Palace, it was especially quiet. It was especially cold and solemn. Unknowingly, the sky gradually darkened. Gloomy dark clouds started covering the moon and the stars. An undercurrent that covered half of the Midland swept over with an unstoppable force. The morning sun rose. The first rays of dawn were coming. Just as dawn was about to arrive, a sudden violent tremor broke the silence of the night. Boom! Boom! The earth shook and the mountains shook. A city in the southern outermost area of the War God Palace suddenly collapsed, as if it had been attacked by a storm. Along with a sky-high, fiery light, sky-shaking battle roars tore apart the silence. Kill. Charge. The formidable army was unstoppable. War drums and bugles resounded in all directions like thunder. Enemy attack. Report to the palace master immediately. People in the city panicked and hurriedly fought back. However, like a flood that broke through a dam, the crowd surged into the inner city of the war god palace, quickly occupying a large area of the outer city. Kill. The martial sect, Han Yun Martial School, and Spirit Phoenix Valley directly marched in 3 directions, leading the people of Horse City, Flying Rain School, and the others, breaking through layers of the outer city. The sudden attack at dawn caught the war god palace unprepared. The people in the outer city couldn't stop the martial sect's army. More than 100,000 people rushed towards the center of the inner city like a long spear. The sun rose. The sky brightened. Along with the light of dawn, the unstoppable martial sect's army stepped on the dawn and opened up a bloody path. They advanced triumphantly, broke the city tower, and broke into the sacred main city. Kill! Thunder-like noises exploded in the air above the main city. Tens of thousands of powerful warriors rushed to the palace of the main city. However, at this moment, on a broad square outside the main palace, people of the war god palace had already gathered. On the meditation platform in the middle of the square, a majestic king-like figure was sitting on a wide stone chair. Beside him, many powerful warriors of the war god palace were emitting a cold aura. What a surprise, they actually came here. Bang! Boom! A fierce and violent shockwave rose to the sky. The ground in front of them cracked, and hundreds of disciples of the war god palace were sent flying. An extraordinary, imposing aura enveloped them. They saw a young figure leading a group of experts with extraordinary auras, riding the wind and arriving. War God Palace. I, Chuhan, am here. Thank you, Brother Enran, for your reward, as well as the other brothers' rewards. I caught a cold today. If I get better tomorrow, I will add more chapters for you. Chapter 1485. War God Palace. I, Chuhan, am here. A wave of violent and monstrous aura directly shattered the earth, shattered the tall buildings in the outer city, and sent the disciples of the war god palace flying. The martial sect, Han Yun sect, Spirit Phoenix Valley, and the other allied forces of over 100,000 people were impressively pressuring the borders. They were like an unstoppable tsunami as they majestically barged into the inner city. Many experts of the war god palace seemed to have been waiting for a long time. The emperor-like palace master, Duan Tsong, sat on a Zen platform in the square in front of the main hall. Behind him and on both sides, there was also a strong aura of tens of thousands of people. One occupied the main hall. The other was at the gates. Like an army of gods and demons that was about to meet, they were ready to fight at any moment. Chu Han stood in the lead, towering in the sky. Xu Yuan, Mei Zhang, and Dongfang Hengji followed closely behind. Qiu Xingyi, Yi Zhou, Huang Fuqing, Long Xuanshuang, Yi Yao, and many other geniuses on the list were also arrogant, showing an extraordinary aura. It's really that little bastard. He's not dead yet. Elder Shi and Elder Shui of the War God Palace, who were standing behind Palace Master Duan Tsong, had gloomy expressions on their faces. There was still astonishment in their eyes. The two looked at each other and saw the confusion on each other's faces. At that time, they had witnessed Chu Hen's vital point being pierced. He couldn't be saved at all. But now, not only did the other party appear in front of them, but he also led a group of forces to attack the War God Palace, which was really unexpected. It seems that Guxian not only failed to kill him, but also died in his hands. If we had known this would happen, we would have completely destroyed him back then. Their eyes were filled with a strong sense of fierceness. However, Duan Tsong, who was sitting on the stone chair in the middle of the square, was quite relaxed. There was a playful smile on his face as he slightly sat upright, staring at Chu Hen and the others in the sky with a playful look. Welcome, everyone. Sorry for not going out to meet you. An invisible expert's prestige spread out. Dongfang Hengji, Xu Yuan, and the others' faces changed slightly. Just the aura it casually emitted was enough to strike fear into people's hearts. Duan Song was indeed a terrifying existence who was half a step into the great Saint King realm. You guys really surprised me. Duan Song laughed disdainfully. It's been a long time since something so exciting has happened. You lowly ants actually dare to barge into my war god palace. Isn't it better to live in secret? Must you overestimate yourself? Buzz, the increasingly powerful aura was like a mountain blocking in front of everyone. Everyone felt like they were facing an insurmountable mountain, and they couldn't help but lose their fighting spirit. However, in the face of the powerful deterrence displayed by Duan Song, there was not the slightest hint of fear on Chu Hen's face. His eyes were deep and surging with a cold light. You've been arrogant for too long, and you've gotten used to not seeing others as humans. Even if we're ants, it's not your turn to trample on us. Chu Hen slowly raised his right hand and clenched his 5 fingers in the air. Clang! Along with an impassioned and resonant sound, the formless emperor blade, which was shining with a peerless sharpness, immediately appeared in his palm. Looking down from above, Ling Tian indifferently looked at the people of the war god palace on the meditation platform in front of him. Then, Chu Hen pointed the sword at Duan Song. No matter how huge you are, today, we'll make your war god palace bleed. Every word was like a pearl that revealed its sharpness. This was a provocation from the ants to the beasts. It was also a direct declaration of war from the martial sect to the war god palace. Once again, the scattered fighting spirit and morale gathered again because of Chu Hen's domineering aura. At this moment, even though the one in front of them was a giant that dominated a region of the Midland, they were not afraid at all. Interesting. Let's see if you'll make my war god palace bleed, or if my war god palace will make your motley crew bleed. Duan Song's eyes revealed a fierce killing intent. Chu Hen's pupils shrank, and the divine sword in his hand shone brightly. He shouted, "Kill!" With his order, the crowd rose up. "Kill! Charge!" In an instant, the people of the martial sect all rushed towards the central square of the inner city with a sky-piercing aura. Rumble. However, in the next moment, a dazzling and complicated light formation suddenly burst out from the open space outside the square. Along with a dazzling light that soared into the sky, countless silver light beams interweaved and formed into illusionary giants. These illusionary giants were all wearing heavy armors and holding sharp swords and spears. They were just like the divine guards who were guarding this place. Zong! Boom! The illusionary giants directly raised their spears and waved their sharp swords, thrusting towards the crowd that was rushing towards them. Be careful, it's their great protective formation, Luo Zhua, the mayor of Susa City, exclaimed. The sharp and extraordinary attack was like a thunderbolt that pierced through a storm. The people who were caught off guard were all sent flying. A terrifying deterrent force swept over, and the formation in front of them was immediately broken. The people at the back hurriedly launched a second round of attacks. However, these illusionary giants were like huge beasts that blocked in front of them. It was especially difficult to even get close to them. Under the fierce attack of the illusionary giants, Chu Hen's side quickly suffered casualties. Compared to the martial sect, which could only defend against the Great Protective Formation, the Great Protective Formation of the War God Palace was both offensive and defensive. Moreover, it was extremely powerful. After a series of attacks, they were all pushed back. A bunch of stupid things. The people of the War God Palace all stood on the square and looked at them with disdain. Elder Sure sneered. You can't even break the Great Protective Formation, yet you still dare to speak arrogantly, saying that you want to massacre the War God Palace. What a joke. Ants are ants. No matter how many of them gather, they're still a bunch of useless trash. Facing the ridicule of the crowd, a frivolous look appeared on Chu Hen's face. Humph. In the next moment, Chu Hen flew up and leaped into the sky. Immediately, a terrifying sharp sword force that swept through the 9 heavens suddenly shrouded down. The hearts of the people present were shocked. Following that, the terrifying sword Chi storm immediately converged behind Chu Hen, forming a peerless Azura figure that was thousands of feet tall. Blue light flickered, and a cold aura shook the sky. Chu Hen waved his hand, waving the formless emperor blade in his palm. Rumble! In the same second, the thousands of feet tall Azura figure also took out the dazzling heaven-punishing divine sword that was like a pillar of the sky. As endless blue light gathered on the huge sword, a destructive storm sealed the sky above the square. This is Hanyun sect leader Shu Yuan, Spirit Phoenix Valley leader Mei Zhang, and the others' expressions changed slightly. Pairs of trembling eyes reflected the blue light. Infinite sword, buzz. The aurora sword rain lingered and turned into endless sword blades. The thousands of feet tall Azura figure directly slashed down from the sky, sweeping up an incomparably terrifying impact towards the main palace square below. Bang! Heaven and earth shook unceasingly, and airwaves swept across the sky. Under countless shocked gazes, a vast and chaotic silver halo exploded in the middle of the sky. Along with a deafening rumble, the terrifying sword Qi crushed down, directly crushing the illusionary giants into pieces. This sword, heaven punishing earth. Not only was it a critical strike from Chu Hen after he stepped into the great Saint King realm, but it was also a shocking sharpness after the formless Emperor Blade devoured the Destiny Sword. Its terrifying power was many times stronger than when it killed Lei Zhun of the Thunder Saint clan in the Chaos Devil Domain. Boom! The ground outside the square burst open rapidly, and the sky was filled with broken stones like an endless swarm of flying moths. Like broken glass, the protective array of the War God Palace immediately exploded into millions of ice crystal fragments. Shocking. The faces of the people of the War God Palace immediately darkened. Domineering. The morale of the martial sect, Hanyun sect, and Spirit Phoenix Valley Side Sword. Breaking the array with one sword was a declaration of war. Chu Hen pointed his sword at the world, venting the supreme, domineering aura. Kill. Chapter 1486. Qianqian. The latest chapter of Divine King Wu Ji. Kill. A sword broke the formation. The group of heroes rose. Together with the explosion of rocks and dust, Martial Sect, Hanyun Sect, Spirit Phoenix Valley, Horse City, Flying Rain Sect, and other forces directly launched an all-out attack. The War God Palace was also burning with anger. Kill. With a command, the tens of thousands of people from the War God Palace rushed down the square Zen platform, waving their sabers and long swords to the people in front of them. Boom! Bang! The inevitable war had begun. The two groups of people were like mighty scourges and fierce beasts, directly fighting against each other. It was an extremely spectacular scene, like two groups of beasts converging, covering the sky and earth, erupting into a fierce war. A group of trash dares to invade my War God Palace. Today, you will not be able to leave. On the Zen platform, a few powerful figures with extraordinary aura around Duan Song also leaped out, each of them treading on the air, releasing the power of the domain that only Great Saint King realm experts could control. At the same time, Martial Sect Master Dongfang Hengji, Hanyun Sect Master Shu Yuan, and Spirit Phoenix Valley Sect Master Mei Zhang also treaded on the air, unleashing a powerful aura to launch an attack. Since it's a fight to the death, we will fight to the death. Kill. Several figures immediately collided head-on. The sky and earth changed color, and the wind and clouds changed. Many different powerful domain forces swept across like stormy waves, violently confronting and bombarding each other like volcanoes and tsunamis. Dongfang Hengji, you are really arrogant. Have you forgotten how you trembled in front of this elder 30 years ago? A tall and thin man in his 40s or 50s appeared directly in front of Dongfang Hengji. His slightly sunken eye sockets emitted a green, poisonous light, like two deadly poisonous snakes entrenched in his eyes. Looking at the strange man in front of him, the corner of Dongfang Hengji's eyes turned cold, and he said sternly, Xianwan, "Hey, you still remember me. How can I forget? The humiliation you gave me, I will never forget it." Ha ha. Well said. The humiliation I gave you last time, today will be your end. Oof, you're wrong. This is the time for you to repay your debt. After that, Dongfang Hengji raised his arms outward, and a circle of dazzling, colorful light patterns spread out like a tide. Chaos Domain, I haven't seen you for 30 years, but you have improved a bit. The elder of War God Palace, called Xian Luan, said indifferently. I've improved, but you're still stuck at the same spot. Courting death. The grudges of the past, the anger of today. Dongfang Hengji immediately fought with Xian Luan. The domains of the two sides continued to collide violently, causing the surrounding space to distort rapidly. Old man Mei Zhang, who gave you the courage to do this? You actually barged into this place? In front of Mei Zhang was another burly man who looked like an orc. Luoya. Mei Zhang's eyes were cold, and his face was filled with coldness. Haha, I really don't know what you're thinking. However, I'm extremely happy that you're able to come here. After all, I don't have to personally make a trip to your Spirit Phoenix Valley. Luoya's mocking laughter was like looking at a lamb in trouble. Mei Zhang clenched his fists and laughed. It seems that I didn't come here in vain. Oh, I'm very happy that you can say this. It's because of you that I don't doubt whether we made the wrong choice. After that, a majestic force overflowed from Mei Zhang's body. He didn't show any signs of aging, and his cold eyes revealed a sword-like sharpness. Madman, Luoya sneered, and then he also burst out with a force that was like a mountain torrent and pounced on the other party. Han Yun Sect's sect master, Shu Yuan, was currently engaged in a fierce battle with a woman who looked like she was in her 40s. Although the woman's facial features were not ugly, her face revealed a sharp and cold look. Her pair of triangular eyes were cold and sharp, causing people to feel fear. Han Yun Sect really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I'm going to sacrifice all of your souls to my blood furnace. As she spoke, her skinny hand that was like a chicken's claw turned over, and a small cauldron appeared in her hand. Most ordinary cauldrons had 3 legs, but this cauldron had 5 legs. On each leg, there was a poisonous creature. They were poisonous snakes, toads, centipedes, scorpions, and spiders. 5 poison cauldron? Shu Yuan's expression changed slightly. At least you know what's good for you. Today, I'll use your blood to feed this 5 poison cauldron. The woman grinned, and it was very sinister. She condensed her palm, and a thick, murderous aura surged toward Shu Yuan along with the released domain power. At the same time, a wisp of blue smoke came out of the cauldron. The wisp of blue smoke pounced toward Shu Yuan. In the process of moving, a giant snake covered in green scales suddenly rushed out from within the blue smoke. Its fangs were exposed, and it was extremely ferocious. The giant snake opened its bloody mouth and bit toward Shu Yuan, the pungent smell of blood. Shu Yuan didn't panic. His eyes turned cold, and his palms raised a majestic palm force. The power stacked up like a mountain torrent, and a giant hand reached forward to meet the giant snake's head. Bang! The two forces collided, and the sky darkened. The wind and clouds roared. The all-out battle caused the inside and outside of the War God Palace to be turned upside down. The intense battle was comparable to the collision of stars. Under the sky, inside and outside the city tower, the incomparably chaotic battle situation quickly spread out. The weapons clashed, and sparks flew in all directions. Cold spears and halberds flickered with frostlight. For the martial organization, Han Yun Sect, Spirit Phoenix Valley, Horse City, and Flying Rain Sect, this was definitely a fight to the death. There was no way out at all. Kill! The eyes of Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Wu Yin, and the others all turned red. It was as if they had already disregarded life and death during the great battle in the Chaos Demon Domain. The sharp blades continuously slashed at the enemy's body, causing blood to spurt out and miserable screams to ring out. At the same time, the enemy's sharp cold spears also continuously pierced through the bodies of their companions. Blood splattered everywhere, and a long mournful cry sounded. One by one, they fell. Blood splattered all over the ground of the War God Palace. However, this was only the beginning. This TSK, the Marshall Organization, and the others actually dared to come. It's really unbelievable. I also thought that they were just bluffing. I didn't think that they would really come. Outside the War God Palace. At this moment, many busybodies had already gathered in the dark to watch the battle. Among them, there were many first-rate forces. If someone looked around carefully, he would find that even the Great Emperor Palace, the New Moon Holy Clan, the Wind Frost City, and other forces were hiding in the dark. Looking at the two armies that were fighting against each other, the black mass of people was exceptionally spectacular. The intense scene was especially mournful. Wave after wave, nearly 200,000 people had started a large-scale battle that had never happened in the Midland in the past thousands of years. These days, the enmity between the Marshall Organization and the War God Palace had touched the heartstrings of everyone in the Midland. But no one wanted to miss this earth-shaking battle. I really admire those people from the Marshall Organization. The eight-armed Emperor Wei Yin shook his head and sighed. Beside him, Tang Bufan also had a deep look in his eyes and a serious look on his face. I can't help but admire their courage. Emperor Lin Yu, Hu Bingyu said, "Courage alone is useless. The difference between the fighting strength of the two sides is too big. The number of great Saint Kings is less than half, and Duan Song hasn't even made a move yet." Wei Yin said in a deep voice. "Didn't Chu Hen not make a move either?" Hu Bingyu said. "Just him?" Wei Yin still shook his head firmly. "A month ago, Chu Hen was just a Saint King like us. Even if he has mastered the power of domain, he can't be compared with Duan Song, who is half a step into the heaven stage Great Saint King realm. But he killed Gu Xian, who was a mortal stage Great Saint King, with one move. It can be seen that his cultivation is definitely above the mortal stage." Hu Bingyu seemed to have some expectations for Chu Hen. After all, that man's performance on the Wind Cloud list was simply too outstanding. Now, he had done something that even the Great Emperor Palace didn't dare to rashly do. It was really hard for her to compare Chu Hen with an ordinary person. Wei Yin didn't argue with her. He just said coldly, "You'll know later." With this situation, the Marshall sect won't be able to hold on for long. In the Midland, after all, the world had changed. That earth-shattering storm arrived without delay. For thousands of years, for the first time, someone challenged the dignity of the War God Palace. Even though the sky above the War God Palace had fallen into a terrifying state because of the fierce collision of the power of the various domains, everyone outside the city focused their attention on the young figure standing in the sky. Holding his sword in the air, he had an imposing appearance. Chu Hen didn't make a move immediately. Duan Song, who was below, was still quietly sitting on the stone chair. Screech. At this time, a low bird cry came from the square on the west side of the main palace. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He lightly held the sword in his hand, dragging a beam of beautiful lightning in the air. However, before Chu Hen could go to the square on the west side, a majestic aura surged. In the next moment, a dark gray domain directly covered him. "Little bastard, this elder will send you on your way now. Dark Night Domain." Buzz. Accompanied by a biting cold and strong killing intent, an old man with a cold gaze astonishingly appeared in front of Chu Hen, blocking him. Under the cover of the dark gray sky, the old man's figure was like a shadow in the dark night, instantly merging into the darkness. In an instant, countless sharp rays of light that tore the air apart attacked Chu Hen from all directions. Every ray of light was like a sharp blade that could pierce through everything, showing the power to kill and destroy. Facing this life-threatening attack, Chu Hen's eyes moved left and right, following which a majestic purple flame swept out from his body with a momentum that soared into the sky. Bang! A storm of purple flames exploded like a star in the dark gray domain. An earth-shattering wave rose into the air, and in the next second, endless killing intent was released inside. Domain, flying immortal sword. Following that, streaks of purple humanoid sword chi suddenly flashed in the void. Crack! The sound of the intersecting lightning arcs was sharp and ear-piercing, and the killing intent filled the sky and whistled in all directions. Bang! With an explosive sound, the gray dark night domain instantly exploded. Incomparably chaotic waves of air raged. Under the onslaught of the ferocious gales, a miserable body that was completely covered in blood and had lost all 4 limbs fell from the sky. A rain of blood scattered in the air, and the aura of death lingered. The people of the war god palace turned pale with fright. Elder Chapter 1487. A cold wind raged as killing intent filled the sky. The purple humanoid sword chi that appeared in the void was like a hunter reaping lives, causing everyone's heartstrings to tremble. Elder, the faces of the people from the war god palace changed drastically when they saw the bloodied body that had been chopped off. Bang! He rapidly fell from the sky like a sandbag, smashing heavily on the platform of the plaza. Although he was not dead yet, it was a tragic sight to behold. This is outside the war god palace. The spectators of the major forces and sects who were hiding in the dark were also shocked by the scene in front of them. Their eyes widened and their faces were filled with shock. Even the night figurine couldn't withstand a blow from him. The 8-armed emperor official, Wei Yin, clenched his fists as his eyes were filled with shock. What kind of monster is this guy? If Gu Xian and He Dong could be said to be able to maintain the last shred of calmness in their hearts after being killed by Chu Hen in a few moves, then the miserable defeat of the night figurine made people have no choice but to re-evaluate Chu Hen's cultivation. It was common knowledge that the night figurine was a great saint king at the peak of the mortal rank. He was only a step away from reaching the earth rank. The Dark Night domain that he controlled was once regarded as a forbidden zone of death by the outside world. Any target that was targeted by it had almost no chance of survival. However, such a peak mortal rank Great Saint King realm powerhouse was still cut down from the sky by Chu Hen's sword. It was truly terrifying. Could he have reached the earth rank Great Saint King stage? Hu Bingyu said in a low voice. Impossible. That's impossible. Wei Yin denied Hu Bingyu's thought firmly. He frowned and said, I know there are precedents of people who have directly reached the Great Saint King stage from the middle and late stage of the Saint King stage. However, there has never been a case of someone surpassing the mortal rank to the earth rank, even if he had obtained the inheritance from the great Emperor Zhaohua. It's the power of the territory. At this moment, Tang Bufan, who had not spoken since the beginning of the battle, said word by word, What? The people from the great Emperor Palace looked at him in shock. Tang Bufan's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He looked at the chaotic battlefield above the Battle God Palace and said solemnly, Although he's also at the mortal rank Great Saint King stage, the territory energy he controls is just too powerful. The other people's territories are on a completely different level compared to him. That's why they can't even withstand a single blow. His words woke the dreamer up. Perhaps the range that Chu Hen's domain could extend was only at the mortal rank, but the strength of the power contained in his domain could be said to be terrifying. When the other people's domains collided with it, they seemed extremely weak. Absolute suppression of domain power? On the other side, New Moon Sacred Clan's half-demon, Lai Shang Yuan's eyes narrowed into a line. There was still a look of surprise on his devilish face. Looks like he came prepared. On the other side of Wind Frost City, Situ Hanya nodded secretly. He crossed his arms in front of him and muttered to himself, How many more trump cards do you have? To you, is the Wind Cloud list just the beginning? Behind Situ Hanya was Situya, whose face was pale. A single sword strike had caused the blood of a great Saint King realm powerhouse to splatter across the sky. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed that the rumors she had been hearing these past few days were true. She had thought that the Wind Cloud list was just the peak of Chu Hen's power. Who would have thought that it was just the beginning? Her second brother, Situ Xiao, had died in vain. Rumble. The wind raged and the clouds scud. The murderous aura descended. Many purple humanoid sword chi overlapped like phantoms and condensed into a young figure with a peerless aura. Chu Hen held the phaseless emperor blade diagonally. There was still a trace of blood on the blade. Chu Hen's stunning performance of defeating the peak mortal rank Great Saint King Knight figurine with a single strike had greatly boosted the morale of the martial sect side. However, Duan Tsang, the ruler of the Battle God Palace, did not have any change in his expression. He was still sitting sideways on the stone chair as he stared at Chu Hen, who was hovering in the air like a king. It's a very good territory. It's my first time seeing such a powerful territory energy. What do you think? Chu Hen raised an eyebrow slightly. Hee, but I'm afraid you won't be able to handle the situation alone. As soon as Duan Song's words left his mouth, several loud noises reverberated in the outer city. Subsequently, earth-shattering battle cries reverberated in the air from all directions. Kill. Those who offend the Battle God Palace will be killed without mercy. In an instant, the vast crowd swarmed over from all directions. Figures with piercingly cold auras soared in the air and launched an attack on the martial sect side. Duan Song's face was filled with a mocking smile. As long as I give the order, there'll be many forces willing to sacrifice their lives for the Battle God Palace. Now, you don't even have the advantage in numbers. A joint attack from both inside and outside. The numerous experts of the Battle God Palace in the inner city and the tens of thousands of people from the outer city work together to surround the martial sect, Han Yun sect, Spirit Phoenix Valley, Horse City, and the Flying Rain sect in the middle. An even more chaotic and intense battle broke out. The martial sect formation was instantly messed up when they were attacked from both the front and the back. This time, the advantage in numbers was obviously weakened. The entire place was in chaos. Bang! Swords and sabers clashed, fists and palms collided. The crowd on the side of the martial zone was quickly swallowed up by the two dark armies. Damn it! Xiao Xingyi crazily killed a bloody path in the chaotic army. He wanted to cooperate with Yi Zhou, Huang Fuqing, and Long Xuanchuang to control the situation, but he couldn't care too much. What should we do? Wang Li and Wu Yin had their backs facing each other as they asked. We must break out of the encirclement. Otherwise, it won't be long before we are completely annihilated. Yes, let's break out from all directions. The situation instantly changed. Just a moment ago, everyone thought that the martial sect came prepared and could still fight. But in the blink of an eye, the War Deity Palace's side steadily gained the upper hand. The War Deity Palace is still the War Deity Palace after all. They have too many forces under them. Someone shook his head and said, "At the beginning, I was puzzled why the War Deity Palace's outer city was so easily breached. Turns out they purposely let them in. Looks like the War Deity Palace's move is not going to let anyone go. That's natural. With the War Deity Palace's methods, all the invaders today can forget about leaving alive." The chaotic battle broke out. Even though Qiu Xingyi, Yi Zhou, Huang Fuqing, Long Xuanchuang, and the other top geniuses on the honor list tried to break out of the encirclement, they didn't stand a chance. Especially on the War Deity Palace's side, there were still a few great Sage King realm experts that no one could control, sealing off their escape route. They couldn't break out at all. A bunch of arrogant fools. All of you shall stay here. Your blood shall be cast on the walls of the War Deity Palace. A great Sage King realm old man clasped his hands together and a vigorous aura whizzed out. The power of the domain that quickly extended out was like a swamp dragging the bodies of the martial sect side. Everyone's expression changed and they panicked. Looking at the slaughtering knife that was swinging towards them, all of them revealed a look of despair. Roar, roar. However, it was also at this moment that shocking roars of beasts suddenly reverberated outside the War Deity Palace's city. Boom! Rumble! Following that, the ground was overturned and the city tower collapsed. Together with a terrifying gale that could overturn the mountains and overturn the seas, a monstrous demonic aura came crashing down like a storm. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, it was as if countless locusts were pouncing on them. Huge beasts with earth-shattering ferocious aura trampled through the city and charged towards them. Woo! Huge beasts charged into the encirclement at the back of the War Deity Palace, waving their sharp claws and biting their fangs. Mournful cries could be heard as blood rained down in all directions. It's the demon region's army. The expressions of the crowd outside the city changed again and again. Looking from afar, on top of the outer city wall, a figure carrying a black pagoda-shaped demonic sword could be seen. He was like a king commanding his troops, his cold eyes filled with a thick, evil aura. Chapter 1488. Qianqian, Divine King Wu Ji's latest chapter. Roar. Boom. The roars of thousands of demonic beasts shook the heavens, their endless anger shaking the 9 heavens. Just as the martial sect, Hanyun sect, and Spirit Phoenix Valley side fell into the war god palace's encirclement, several ferocious beasts charged into the battlefield with earth-shattering momentum. Kill! Mu Feng carried the demon's sword on his back as he stood at the top of the city tower. His eyes were cold as though he was a majestic king. His terrifying aura was like a huge mountain pressing down on the people behind the war god palace. In an instant, the majestic battlefield was quickly divided into countless pieces. The ferocious beasts were tyrannical and disrupted everything, breaking through the war god palace's inner and outer formations. The martial sect side, who were being attacked by the encirclement, heaved a sigh of relief and took the opportunity to launch a counterattack. It's these beasts again. The elder who released the domain power to seal the martial sect, Han Yun sect, and Spirit Phoenix Valley's retreat path immediately turned gloomy. It was you beasts who spoiled the war god palace's plans in the chaos devil domain. After saying that, the old man's eyes turned cold. Then, he flew up and headed straight for Mu Feng's location. Little bastard, die for me. Seeing the great Saint King charging towards him, Mu Feng's expression changed. He did not have Chu Hen's ferocious killing ability. Without any carelessness, Mu Feng held the Buddha demon sword with both hands as his entire body glowed with a demonic red light. At the same time, every inch of his muscles bulged. The veins on his neck and forehead bulged like angry horned dragons. Jia! A sharp and strange whistling sound rang out. In the next second, a dark shadow emitting an endless monstrous demonic aura condensed behind Mu Feng. Its slender body was shrouded in a demonic light as 12 pairs of sharp golden wings spread out from its back. It really is the aura of the Dark Empress Divine Winged Serpent. However, this little bit of power is not enough to stop me. The elder was brimming with killing intent. He directly spread out a powerful light green domain that enveloped Mu Feng. Mu Feng was also shocked and furious at the same time. Without saying a word, he raised the Buddha demon sword and slashed at his opponent. Old thing, eat my sword, buzz. Layers of crimson light converged on the sword, like tassels dancing in the wind. An endless amount of powerful demonic energy gathered inside the demon sword. In an instant, it was as if Mu Feng was holding a pillar of light that had been soaked in magma. He swung the giant sword horizontally, bringing forth a heaven-splitting divine might as he slashed down. The old man sneered. The condensed true essence converged in his palm. The majestic palm force was like a torrent of waves as it welcomed the demonic sword. As soon as the two collided, a deafening explosion immediately erupted between heaven and earth. Like a heavenly pillar smashing into a mountain, a violent and chaotic power immediately rippled out between the two. Bang! With a heavy sound, Mu Feng was directly sent flying along with his sword. Like a heavy sandbag, he heavily smashed into the city tower behind him. The astonishing and terrifying impact caused the entire city wall to collapse. In the pile of rubble, Mu Feng climbed up with the demon's sword in his hand. He felt salty in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. Old thing, you're quite fierce. I almost peed my pants because of you. Seeing that Mu Feng was still able to stand up after taking his palm, the elder's eyes were filled with dense killing intent. As expected of someone who has fused with the demon emperor's bloodline. You're still alive. It seems that no matter what, I can't let you live. After saying that, the elder raised his palm again. Along with a surging deterrent force, a seemingly material demonic hand immediately enveloped Mu Feng's head. The shadow of destruction quickly pressed closer. Mufang's eyes were filled with seriousness. However, the injuries in his body and the pressure of the domain made it difficult for him to move. Whoosh! Suddenly, a light beam of light swept past, and a pair of delicate hands directly grabbed Mufang's shoulder and then instantly disappeared. Boom! The earth split open and rubble collapsed. The terrifying impact crushed in all directions, causing a huge palm print that was hundreds of meters across to appear on the ground. The spread of the air wave was like a rapid storm, overturning the ruins on the ground. Damn, that was close. I almost died. Mufang broke out in a cold sweat. I say, why are you pretending? Do you really think you're Chu Hen? Luckily, I came in time. Otherwise, you'd be seeing the king of hell. Ancestral butterfly. The great Saint King Realm Elder's eyes were filled with coldness as he stared coldly at the agile, six-winged figure hovering next to Mufang. You came at the right time. This time, I'll get rid of you too, six-winged ancestral butterfly. Hey, old man, I'm not going to fight with you. Xiaoan grabbed Mufang and quickly retreated from the elder's domain. Then, she shouted loudly, Second Elder, come and save us. As soon as she finished speaking, a powerful aura whizzed over from the other side of the sky. A majestic figure with an extraordinary bearing swept over with the wind. Behind him were two pairs of dazzling butterfly wings. Although he only had 4 wings, the aura he exuded was extremely powerful. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, many experts of the ancestral butterfly clan also stepped into the War God Palace's inner city. Especially vigorous life force poured into the martial arts great sect and the demonic beasts. It was like a source of life replenishment, and the injured people and demonic beasts quickly recovered from their injuries. I'm afraid the ancestral butterfly clan wants to be completely exterminated, right? Do you have the right to meddle in the affairs of the human clan? The elder looked at the ancestral butterfly clan's second elder coldly. The latter had a determined look and said resolutely, that Chu Hen has done a great favor for the ancestral butterfly clan. Today, I'm here to repay the favor. What a great way to repay the favor. Since you've stepped into the human clan's territory, don't blame the War God Palace for being merciless. The war broke out completely. The Monster Region's army and the ancestral butterfly clan joined in and messed up the situation in all aspects. Flames and smoke rose everywhere as thousands of soldiers fought with their lives on the line. Wherever the claws and teeth of the giant beasts went, there would be a rain of blood and limbs flying everywhere. The intense battle quickly spread to every corner of the War God Palace's inner and outer city. Hundreds of thousands of human experts and demonic beasts overturned the ground and shook the heavens. Blood stained the ground, and corpses were everywhere. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot as they let the blood shower and enjoyed the sound of sharp weapons piercing through the enemy's chest. At this stage, there was no way out. No one could retreat. For the people of the Great Emperor Palace, Wind Frost City, New Moon Sacred Clan, and the others outside the city, the scene in front of them was like a reenactment of the scene on the Wind Cloud platform. The protagonists were the martial ancestor and the War God Palace. The Monster Region's army and the ancestral butterfly clan were also involved. But the difference was that the scale of the battle between the two was like heaven and earth. The Holy War Cloud platform was just a tiny microcosm of the current scene. The man who ended Mang Yuantu's undefeated legend and took over the Wind Cloud list was now standing in front of the highest authority in the War God Palace. The crazy killing was like a storm, and the roars of the beasts were like thunder. This time, it was Chu Hen who looked at Duan Song, who was sitting on the throne below. Make your move. Your War God Palace can't find anyone who can block my sword. Domineering, arrogant, and the most disdainful provocation. Duan Song laughed. What a hateful guy. But, do you think you're worthy? Xing. Formless Emperor blade interweaved with cold light. Chu Hen's blade shone with peerless elegance as the blade pointed at Duan Song again. Chu Hen's face also showed a cold smile, and the hatred and killing intent in the depths of his pupils overflowed without concealment. Because of your war, God Palace's arrogance and shamelessness, I lost a very important person. His voice paused, and Chu Hen's eyes revealed a touch of hostility. His tone was high and full of ridicule, exuding deep hatred. Duan Song, right? Wipe your neck clean today. I'm going to kill you, you dog. P.S. Here's the fourth update. Everyone's rewards in the past 2 days have been really great. It makes me feel like I've returned to the peak of the book, Martial God King. I won't say anything more. I'll continue to add chapters tomorrow. Chapter 1489. Duan Song, right? Today, I'm going to kill you, you bastard. A cold and ruthless aura emanated from Chu Hen's body. The formless emperor blade in his hand blossomed with dazzling divine light. In an instant, two invisible and majestic forces collided like a falling heavenly river and a sky-shaking tsunami. Bastard. These 3 words directly caused Duan Song's face to darken. No one in the world had ever dared to provoke him like this. I swear, no one can protect you today. Duan Song's eyes erupted with intense ruthlessness. Then, he raised his right palm and slapped the armrest of the stone throne beneath him. Bang! An incomparably violent explosion resounded. An incomparably terrifying force directly transmitted from the stone thrown to the ground, along with the deep cracks that instantly covered the entire meditation platform. Countless large and small rocks were lifted into the air. Even so, the stone thrown beneath Duan Song was not the slightest bit damaged. It's about to begin. The spectators of the major forces hiding in the dark outside the city were all shocked. Rumble. The heaven-shattering rocks of all sizes seemed to have lost their gravity as they surged up into the sky in an overwhelming manner. Then, Duan Song's 5 fingers condensed in the air. Countless rocks swept towards Chu Hen as if they were hit by a typhoon. In the process of moving, all the rubble rapidly gathered and instantly assembled into a huge pointed cylindrical stone pillar. The fierce attack whistled as the sharp tip of the stone pillar directly attacked Chu Hen. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes twitched. He raised the formless emperor blade in his hand, swaying the world-shocking sharpness of the sword with a beam of lightning arcs. Whoosh! A crescent moon-shaped sword light slashed across the sky and slashed the stone pillar head-on. Bang! A heavy sound exploded in the sky. The rapid airflow spread out to both sides. The peerlessly sharp sword shadow was like a divine light that slashed a meteorite in the sky. The sharp stone pillar was immediately split into 2. Oomph. Tyrant domain. Buzz. An overbearing momentum that was like a thunderclap shook the heavens, and a vast and vigorous wave of chi swept out in all directions. A brilliance that was like a red tide whistled out. Wherever the red domain energy passed by, space would distort, and there were even traces of spatial cracks that could be vaguely seen. What an overbearing power! Outside the battlefield, the expressions of the spectators from the major forces changed. If an ordinary person were to step into such a powerful domain energy, their internal organs and bones would be crushed by the invisible and brutal force. I wonder if Chu Hen's territory can withstand Duan Song's overlord domain. Humph! Don't even think about it. Duan Song's domain is half a step into the heaven stage Great Saint King realm. I'm afraid his domain will be crushed in an instant. Feeling the powerful pressure coming from the red domain, Chu Hen's brows faintly revealed a bit of graveness. Without any hesitation, the Great Path domain also fully extended outwards. In an instant, under many solemn gazes, a layer of red halo and a layer of purple light intersected diagonally in the sky, one above the other below. Boom! Rumble. The moment the 2 different color domain lights collided, it was like a volcanic magma and a raging tsunami fused together. A series of violent forces rumbled in all directions. The 2 domain energy did not give way to each other. For example, water and fire intertwined, constantly rubbing against each other and creating a chaotic rain of sparks. However, the scene that everyone had imagined did not appear. Initially, they thought that Chu Hen's domain energy would be shattered by Duan Song's overlord domain. However, It seemed that he was not at a disadvantage at all. He blocked it. How is this possible? The people from the major forces outside the city widened their eyes. Their faces were filled with disbelief. At the Emperor Grand Palace's side, Wei Yin frowned and said in shock, "The strength of this guy's territory energy is actually so high." Tang Bufan, Hu Bingyu, and the others were also surprised. It was unbelievable. Not long ago, they were still at the same level of competing for the Wind Cloud list. Now, Duansong already had the ability to challenge the strongest person in the God of War Palace. The two particularly overbearing domain energy squeezed the space inside until it was deformed. "Very good. You're qualified for me to make a move." Looking at the young figure standing proudly in the void, Duansong's eyes revealed infinite killing intent. Buzz! The air current vibrated, and Duansong shockingly disappeared from where he stood. He was like a phantom. Chu Hen's pupils trembled slightly. In the next moment, a fierce and rapid hurricane came head-on, and a cold figure that exuded a monstrous deterrence immediately appeared in front of him. Too slow. Accompanied by Duansong's disdainful sneer, he raised his hand and punched. The powerful killing intent caused the space to cave in, and a vigorous red aura pattern lingered on his fist. Chu Hen, who was slightly caught off guard, immediately placed the formless Emperor blade in front of him. Bang! The heavy fist force that could pierce through the galaxy smashed heavily on the blade of the formless Emperor blade. The huge force caused the blade to bend in an arc, and then the surging, terrifying power poured into Chu Hen's body. A solid halo appeared between heaven and earth. Chu Hen suddenly felt his body shake, and his whole body was sent flying by this violent force. Terrifying, everyone who witnessed this scene trembled. "Brother Chu Hen, be careful," Yi Yao exclaimed in panic. Before Chu Hen, who was retreating, could stabilize his body, an afterimage flashed in the void, and Duansong's incomparably domineering figure once again appeared above his head. "Is that all you've got? How dare you behave atrociously in my God of War Palace?" As soon as he finished speaking, Duansong lifted his leg and kicked towards Chu Hen's head. The vigorous aura pattern dragged out an arc-shaped light wing behind his leg. "Get down!" The power of this blow could definitely split a mountain in half. Chu Hen's face darkened slightly, and he raised his left arm to block above his head. Boom! A mighty halo of air rippled in the void, and a heavy blow that could split mountains and rivers smashed solidly in front of Chu Hen. In the next moment, Chu Hen was like a meteorite falling from the sky at an extremely fast speed. Bang! With a loud sound, he smashed into the square below. The ground exploded rapidly, and countless deep fault cracks spread in all directions. Layers of aftershocks overturned the ground, and caused a huge pit to appear on the platform of the square. What a terrifying power! The people of the Great Emperor Palace, New Moon Holy Clan, Wind Frost City, and others were all trembling in fear. Duansong was still Duansong after all. The gap between the mortal Great Saint King realm and the Earth Great Saint King realm was directly reflected. Moreover, Duansong was a terrifying existence that was half a step into the Heaven Great Saint King realm. You really can't withstand a single blow. With a frivolous sneer, Duansong set off a majestic aura and swooped down. He did not intend to give Chu Hen even the slightest chance to breathe. Under the huge pressure, Duansong's body was surrounded by a domineering blood-red steam, and he went straight for Chu Hen, who was deep in the ground. "You can only take 3 of my moves." Killing intent surged in his playful eyes. More and more astonishing power surged from Duansong's body. "Looks like it's going to end like this." The Great Emperor Palace's 8-armed Emperor Wei Yin shook his head lightly. However, just as he finished his words, just as Duansong pressed down on the ground with an irresistible and terrifying aura, crack. Suddenly, a piercingly cold, lightning pillar shot out from the ground. That is, everyone was shocked. Chi-Chi. The incomparably huge lightning pillar was like a flood dragon breaking out of the underground cage, intertwining with each other and rushing around Duansong. The latter's eyes darkened. Humph, insignificant skill. As he spoke, his arms swung outwards, and a circle of light and shadow arcs that were like sharp blades swept out. A series of heavy explosions rang out, and a rain of sparks and fire exploded. The lightning pillar was immediately intercepted and chopped off. But at the same time, a fierce figure with purple lightning swaying fiercely rushed out from the pile of rubble below. Like a beam of aurora, a cold and indifferent face was rapidly reflected in Duan Tsang's pupils. Crack! Countless purple vine-like lightning arcs intertwined from Chu Hen's body and quickly wrapped around Duan Tsang's figure. Just as the latter was about to shatter the invading external force, Chu Hen, who had already arrived in front of him, stretched out his palm, and a peerlessly sharp lightning claw directly locked onto Duan Tsang. "It's my turn." The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up. The lightning claw suddenly exerted force, and like a fierce and domineering dragon's arm, it pulled Duan Tsang down. The distance between the two rapidly shortened. "Humph, shameless boasting." Duan Tsang sneered. Rays of red light shot out from his body and penetrated the lightning claw, shattering the lightning arcs around him. But just as the distance between the two was less than half a meter, Chu Hen suddenly somersaulted in the air and flipped from Duan Tsang's left side to the sky behind him at an extremely tricky angle. "It seems that your reaction speed is not that fast." "What?" The moment his voice fell, a heavy bang sounded. Chu Hen, who had leaped into the air, directly smashed his heavy leg into the center of Duan Tsang's spine. The deafening explosion was like a thunderclap. A beautiful flower of lightning blossomed in midair. Under countless shocked gazes, Duan Tsang was fiercely smashed into the ground below. Chapter 1490. Qianqian. Divine King Wu Ji's latest chapter, as soon as possible. Boom! Like a ball of starlight that exploded close to the ground, a violent and fierce wave spread out from within. Thousands of lightning bolts spread in all directions. Under countless astonished gazes, the already cracked and sunken ground below was once again overturned by the violent shock wave. Bang! Layers of gravel were shaken into powder, and the range of the pit spread wantonly. Everyone's heart trembled. Just a moment ago, Chu Hen was still being suppressed, but in the blink of an eye, he had forcefully recovered. His aura is still so strong. Outside the city, several people from the great Emperor Palace frowned, their eyes filled with disbelief. Well, it's not messed up at all. Feeling Chu Hen's extraordinary aura, everyone could not help but narrow their eyes. In other words, Duan Tsang's two critical strikes just now did not cause too much damage to Chu Hen. Is this guy made of iron? If it were us, I'm afraid we would be smashed to pieces by Duan Tsang in an instant. Wei Yin looked at Chu Hen as if he was looking at a monster, even though the other party was indeed a monster. The earth shook uneasily, and the rubble that filled the sky was like dust floating between heaven and earth. Not waiting for the chaotic waves of air to calm down, the eyes of Chu Hen, who was standing proudly in the air, flickered with fierce purple lightning. Then he stretched his palm down and clenched his 5 fingers in the air. Clang! Along with the destructive power of intersecting thunder, dozens of peerlessly sharp, lightning pillars pierced the ground. The incomparably wild sharpness was like a huge wooden stake that could pierce through everything. And in the midst of the chaotic, interweaving lightning pillars, Duan Tsang was directly pulled out of the ground. A cold sneer appeared on the latter's face. Under the lightning, there was not the slightest hint of panic. He stared coldly at Chu Hen and said, "Not bad. You even seized this opportunity." The moment his words fell, Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He flipped his 5 fingers that controlled the power of thunder. In an instant, all the destructive lightning pillars around Duan Tsang gathered together. Chi-chi! Dozens of incomparably magnificent, huge lightning pillars immediately interweaved and formed a sinister and terrifying lightning dragon under everyone's shocked gazes. Roar! The purple lightning dragon opened its mouth wide and once again charged towards Duan Tsang with an astonishing force that could tear apart the sky. Boom! wind and thunder rolled, and heaven and earth trembled. The thunder dragon charged straight in, knocking Duan Song down along the way. Bang, bang, bang. The stones of the square below collapsed, and a huge ravine rapidly expanded to both sides. An earth-shattering wave of chi swept across the entire square, and dust and smoke rose in all directions. The purple lightning dragon collided with Duan Song's body, and wherever it went, the palace buildings in front of it collapsed and collapsed. Bang! A huge ravine extending hundreds of feet appeared in the center of the main city square, and the incomparably violent thunder dragon finally embedded Duan Song in the middle of the main palace. A huge crater was blasted into the left side of the luxurious main hall. The terrifying aura that spread out was daunting. Terrifying, everyone's heart couldn't help but tremble. However, just as everyone was shocked by Chu Hen's extremely powerful methods, a figure with strands of white gas all over his body stood out from the pile of rubble that had collapsed. The pupils of the spectators outside the battle faintly shrank. Strands of electric arcs swayed on Duan Song's body, and his gorgeous and expensive clothes were also damaged in a few places. But other than that, there were no scars at all. That's all. Duan Song grinned, his eyes revealing a hint of viciousness. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes also narrowed. How is it? If that's all you've got, then I'm really, really disappointed. Disappointed. The moment the last 3 words fell, Duan Song suddenly burst out with a terrifying torrent of hurricane. His figure moved, traversing a distance of 100 feet. Chu Hen's pupils darkened. In the next second, Duan Song had already arrived in front of him. One of his hands turned into a palm blade and slashed towards Chu Hen's neck. The speed was as fast as a flickering light and a passing shadow. However, Chu Hen seemed to have already seen through the opponent's attack trajectory. His figure leaned to the side, avoiding the opponent's attack, and at the same time, the non-phase Emperor blade in his palm stabbed towards the opponent's chest. Duan Song raised his hand and shook off the divine sword that was flickering with electric arcs, then waved his left arm. Swish! Vigorous true essence quickly gathered in his palm and immediately condensed into a sharp, thorny handblade. Duan Song held the thorny hand and slashed towards Chu Hen's head with the power to tear the air apart. However, on Chu Hen's left arm, there were already countless violent electric arcs swimming. Chi-chi, the rapidly converging electric arcs immediately turned into a ball of purple brilliance in his palm. Clang! The sharp true essence hand blade directly collided with the violent purple brilliance, and the vibrating explosion pierced through the heavenly river. The violent aftershock exploded in the air, and along with the distorted space, the two people quickly retreated. However, after only pausing for a moment, the two afterimages once again swept through the air and fiercely collided head-on. The fierce battle between Chu Hen and Duan Song could be said to be earth-shattering. Under the layers of distorted space, a series of violent and chaotic air waves wantonly spread out. The two people's moves were fierce, and their moves were swift and fierce. Every move was full of killing intent. Oh my God! The people of the major forces hiding in the dark outside the city were completely immersed in great amazement. This was a battle between a mortal stage Great Saint King and an earth stage Great Saint King. Originally, they thought that, with the gap in the realm, Chu Hen would soon be defeated. However, what was unbelievable was that Chu Hen did not fall into a disadvantageous position against Duan Song. Genius. Evildoer. It was no longer enough to be used against Chu Hen. Duan Song was obviously a terrifying monster. The sky was in chaos, and the earth was dark. As time passed, the huge war god palace was completely reduced to a chaotic battlefield. All kinds of shouting and killing sounds were intertwined like a symphony. Huge beasts rushed into the chaotic army, roaring angrily and tearing the earth. Smoke rose in all directions, spreading in all directions. Luxurious and imposing city buildings collapsed one after another and became dilapidated ruins. Dongfang Hengji, Meizhong, Shuyuan, and other great Saint King Rel powerhouses directly fought with their domains, and waves of violent power shook the heaven and earth. The direction of the battle between the two sides continued to be unstable. Although the Martial Zone side had the advantage in numbers, and there was also the demonic beast army charging forward and the ancestral butterfly clan helping to treat the injured. However, the most important point was that the War God Palace had an absolute advantage in the number of great Saint King powerhouses. The War God Palace had a total of 10 great Saint King powerhouses. Excluding Gu Xian, who was killed by Chu Hen before, and a Night Warrior who was defeated just now, there were still 8. On the Martial Zone side, there were only Dongfang Hengji, Xu Yuan, Mei Zhang, the second elder of the ancestral butterfly clan, and Chu Hen. In other words, there were only 3 great Saint King powerhouses left, and no one could fight against them. Therefore, no one could control them. Relying on their powerful domain energy, the 3 great Saint King realm powerhouses slaughtered their way through the crowd. Even the ferocious, giant, monstrous beasts couldn't withstand a single blow from them. In terms of overall combat strength, although the Martial Zone side was stronger, once the battle dragged on, the 3 great Saint King powerhouses would inevitably become the biggest factor in determining the outcome of the battle. Even so, the crowd was more concerned about the battle between Chu Hen and Duan Song. In the continuous head-on collision, Chu Hen still did not show any signs of defeat. Soon, the spectators outside the battlefield discovered a problem. It seemed that no matter how fierce and powerful Duan Song's attack was, Chu Hen could easily resolve it. No matter how Duan Song's move changed, Chu Hen seemed to know it and could predict it in advance. Outside the city, in a relatively remote place, Lin Yinghe of the 5 Elements clan stared at the fierce and chaotic battle with a complicated expression. What a blood-boiling scene! Lin Yinghe seemed to come alone. Perhaps he did not stand with the other clansmen. He shook his head slightly and muttered to himself, "Is this the power of those eyes?